Welcome, everybody, to the Cover 2 Podcast Super Football Edition. Guys, I am Nick Nenad.
I'm Jared Smith, and we have our great friend, Mr. Alex Silva, on the show back once again. How you doing, sir?
Doing great. Feels good to be back. Whenever I'm on here, it means there's big sports situations going on, and I'm here for it. So let's go.
We need extra hands. We need extra bodies. We need extra mouths. We need extra everything for this type of show because we have so much football and just news in general to get to. So, Nick, take it away.
Yeah. So, guys, I call it the Super Football Podcast because we're talking all football that you possibly could talk about today. We're doing our NFL preview. It'd be a little bit more condensed than we normally do just because of how big this podcast is. But we're going to do our NFL preview. We're going to go through every single division, and one of us podcasters will primarily preview the division. We're going to take our own team's division. So Jared will have the NFC East. I will have the NFC West, of course, being a Cardinals fan. And Alex Silva is a Denver Broncos fan, so he will take the AFC West, and then we'll just trade off at the divisions, giving our spiel. We will also a little bit later, a lot later actually, we will do an NFL Week 1 preview where we will go over our game of the week and we will pick an upset of the week as well. And we in the middle of this podcast we will also do we'll do a little college football analysis on college football Week 1. We're going to look at some of those big games and those big upsets that happened in Week 1, and we'll look at Week 2 and see if there's anything to talk about there. But yeah, guys. Football starts tonight. We're recording Thursday, September 9th, at about 8:50 or so on the West Coast. So we got less than 12 hours, less than half a day till this game starts tonight between the Cowboys and Buccaneers. So we're just going to start with that. And guys, if you've already seen the game, we know a lot of you are going to be watching this podcast Friday, Saturday, Sunday morning, potentially. If you've already seen what happens in the game, you can skip forward right now. You'll see where the timestamp is for the NFL preview, and we'll go into that, and we won't mention this game further. But for you that will see it before the Thursday game, we want to start off the podcast so you hear nothing else. And it's Buccaneers Cowboys, and we got a Cowboys fan on the podcast here. So Jared, take it away. Your thoughts on Thursday Night Football tonight, the NFL kickoff. Cowboys traveling to Tampa Bay, the world champs in Tampa Bay. Your thoughts on the game and who wins?
Yeah, finally, I wouldn't want it any other way, right? I mean, we've been talking about Dallas gets talked about every single year. They are America's team. Jerry Jones does a great job of hyping this team up and putting this team in the spotlight. They were on Hard Knocks this year, and so we got to see a little more in depth than we normally would about, Dak and his recovery and all the players on the team and all that stuff. But really, today, Thursday, is where they get to really show who this team is, right? Last year, obviously disappointing. Dak has that scary, crazy injury. And then from there, the Cowboys were worthless, to say. Like, as a Cowboys fan, I can say that. They were, without Dak, as great as Ezekiel Elliott is, their offensive line is still good. They have a great trio at receiver. But the defense was god-awful, and they could not put anything together. So this year, right, there's a lot of optimism with Dak coming back completely healthy. Ezekiel Elliott is healthy. They still have that three-headed monster at receiver. And defensively, they brought in Dan Quinn, formerly the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, and he was the mastermind of that Seattle Seahawks Legion of Boom defense. So I'm coming into this game with a lot of optimism because, number one, the Cowboys are relatively healthy, other than not having Zach Martin, who is out because of COVID, which really does suck, right? But other than that, I'm looking at this Dallas Cowboys team and saying, yes, I would say they're a probably top 10 talented team as a whole. The defense pushes them back a little bit. But for me, defensively, they don't need to be great. I don't need a top 3, Chicago Bears 85 defense. I just need to be average. Top 15 is all I need, right? 19, 20 points a game, average giving up, I'm happy. Because guess what? This offense to me is so prolific that I think they're going to be able to score 26, 27, 28 points a game. And I think as long as we can stay healthy, right, knock on wood, COVID, all of those things, injuries, I think this Dallas Cowboys team really does have a chance to hit double-digit wins, be anywhere in the 11 to 12 range, win the division, and then go into the playoffs. And I see Nick Nenad right there. Just was it because I said 11, 12 wins?
Absolutely, 100%. That I don't see that happening. I mean, Jared, you're forgetting that your defense was the Legion of Gloom last year. Okay, it doesn't go from the Legion of Gloom.
I'm pretty sure I mentioned that in my opening statement.
What did they do to improve it that much, though? I mean, I know you guys made improvements and guys are getting healthy, but like that defense ain't going to be top 15. It's going to be like top 25.
No, listen. The biggest improvement is Dan Quinn. You're right. We don't have the studs, the superstars like the Washington football team does, like the Denver Broncos do. Some of those, we don't have Von Miller. We don't have Chase Young. DeMarcus Lawrence is good, but he's not an elite top 5 pass rusher. I get it. I'm not trying to blow smoke up the Cowboys' ass right now. I am simply saying by having a defensive coordinator that has his head screwed on straight, that is going to put the players that he has in the best positions to play so that they can play fast and not have to think. That's what I'm excited about. Like, I'm lowballing it here right now, right? Like, yes, I wish we had this exotic blitz scheme and we had all these star playmakers. We don't have that. We are simply taking it step by step, putting one foot in front of the other, having to say, okay, we went from literally guys giving up and not playing at all because they did not trust their former defensive coordinator and Mike Nolan, to simply now, you know what? We don't have to come up with an exotic scheme. We're just going to play more of a simplistic, basic style defense. And yes, that may not put us in the top 10 range, but I'm okay with that because from what I had to deal with last year, all year long, and all the gray hair that I've accumulated since then, I'm okay with more of a simplistic and boring defense as long as this team can play fast and not have to think. I'm okay with that. Baby steps. Baby steps. Baby steps.
Yeah, I think this Dallas defense is going to have a wider spectrum of variance. You're going to have games where you guys are going to give up a lot of points and Dak Prescott's going to be in a shootout, but you're also going to have what it seems like the Dan Quinn has brought in, his long, lanky corners, his linebackers who hunt for the ball, that you guys are going to have a lot of turnovers. So I think you're going to have those games where you're like, oh, wow, the Dallas defense turned the ball over 3 times and gave Dak Prescott super short fields to work with and allowed that offense to just Zeke, and then post it to Mark Cooper or CeeDee Lamb or something. So I think you're going to see games where it's like very wide variance. You're not going to – it won't be a consistent defense. It's going to be an exciting defense. It's going to be a Sports Center top 10 plays, whether it's them getting just Trayvon Diggs getting burnt toast every time or them picking the ball, Trayvon Diggs picking it, taking pick 6. So it's going to be things like that. So that being said –
you never know what you're doing.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's gonna be exciting football to say the least. That being said, it's 8.5 right now for in favor of Tampa Bay for tonight, and I think they cover easy.
Alex, I agree with you completely. I think that's the one thing about this game. If you're a betting man, that it's brutal if the Cowboys are down. I mean, it's the beginning of the season. I know Tampa Bay won the Super Bowl and their roster was stacked, but I mean, that team, what were they, like 10-6 during the regular season, right? Like that. It's not like that team was undefeated last year and rolled over everybody in the playoffs. I mean, they even struggled in their first game against a backup quarterback in the playoffs. They found their stride, and they were the hottest NFL team at the end of the season. But realistically, this team was pretty solid last year. They weren't great, so everybody thinking that this Buccaneers team is going to go 16-0 and all this stuff, and they're going to roll over every opponent by 14. This ain't college football. This is the NFL, and I think the Cowboys easily will cover and even have a chance to win tonight because we tend to have those kind of early season surprises. And all the momentum is on the Buccaneers tonight. Nobody's really talking about the Cowboys winning this game. I think easily Dallas could surprise everybody and beat the Buccaneers. And yeah, it probably will be bad for the NFL because the Buccaneers will be like, damn, we lost the first game, and then they probably will go 15 or 16-1 from there. But I this first game is always interesting, and I think with all the time off that everybody's had too, it's been at least a full 11 days for everybody off to start season, which has never happened. It's going to be interesting this game, and I think the Cowboys easily cover in this game, and I would even think they win. Jared, what's your prediction on the actual game? You kind of went more into your own team, but what's your prediction for the Thursday night football game?
I've been going back and forth, right? Because obviously we're facing the Super Bowl champs, and they're coming in hot, right? They're going to be excited. They're getting their rings. It's going to be a full stadium for the first time in over a year. And so I'm not going to sit here and be naive and say, oh, yeah, Dallas is going to come in and steamroll them and all this stuff. No, they're playing Tom freaking Brady, right? So I think this will be a game that's in the low 20s. I think it's going to be competitive for most. I can see this game really coming down to who has the football last, right? Like who is smart with time of possession.
Yep.
I think turnovers are going to be key, right? Whoever turns the ball over less. We can say that in every single game, but especially week one, whoever really holds on to the football, punts are okay. I think it was, I forget if it was during Hard Knocks or where I heard this, but it was a coach that said, from an offensive standpoint, you have to finish a drive with the ball touching a kicker's foot, whether that is an extra point off of a touchdown, whether that's a field goal, whether that's a punt. Like, punts are okay. Just do not turn the ball over. So, with that being said, I mean, I'm going with my Cowboys. I'm not going to sit here and be like, yeah, I'm completely 100% confident with that. But I think if Dallas, if their defense can just be average, right, and keep them in the game in the fourth quarter, I like the Dallas Cowboys offense going up against the Buccaneers defense. The Buccaneers defense is good, but I will say Dallas wins 24-23 in a very, very close game.
Yeah, I think the theme of this is that we think the Cowboys absolutely have a chance in this game, and that the betting line doesn't make a lot of sense to a lot of us. And unless you're a super Buccaneers fan, you're not betting that -8, or you're buying a couple points tonight on the betting line. So yeah, we all got a pretty close game, and it should be a fun one to watch as well. Obviously, this is a very when I saw this as the first game of the season, I was like, good job. Right, good job. You have your team on Hard Knocks playing on the first game of the season against the Super Bowl champs, against Tom Brady. It's Tom Brady's 300th career start as well. Dak Prescott returning from injury. You know, it's going to be very interesting tonight. Obviously, hopefully everybody stays healthy tonight, right? I don't want to see guys tearing their ACLs or anything like that. Let's stay out of that. Let's try to have as much of an injury-free weekend as we can, and especially this first game. Yeah, like as much as I don't care about the Cowboys, right? Because I'm just not a fan of them. I didn't like the Dak Prescott broke his leg last year. That's not cool. No. You don't like to see stars get injured, and these guys are where a team like the Cowboys, who was an interesting team, then turns into what they were last year, which was every game you could see them losing, and it's just the NFC West was turned all upside down and all that stuff. So hopefully injury free, and hopefully we have a good game tonight. Hopefully Cowboys cover, because I already have bets.
Really quick, do you guys have a score prediction for this game?
I was just gonna
go ahead, Alex.
I was gonna say, so I got the over-unders at 51.5. I think I'm gonna definitely take the over. I think it's gonna be 31-28. Bucks.
Oh my, geez, bro, are you serious? You literally just took my same thing. I'm gonna go 31-27 Cowboys. That's what mine's gonna be.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm taking the Bucks to win.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah. There you go. And Jared, you said you have Cowboys, right? Obviously.
24-23.
There you go. Okay. So Jared's betting the under. Wow.
Listen,
all right.
Life's too short. Bet the under. What are you doing?
Week one, okay. Defenses are always ahead of the offense.
That's fair. If it's your own team, you could sort of bet the under, because your team's probably not going to score 42 points in a game, right? Yeah. Maybe the Cowboys will, but betting the under is only appropriate if it's your own team. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. You got Teddy Bridgewater starting that team. But we'll get into that in a second. Jared, you already kind of went over your Cowboys team. Talk about the rest of the NFC East as unbiasedly as you can. This is your division to talk about. Give us a full preview of what you think is going to happen. You can include some of your Cowboy stuff you just talked about, but obviously go into the other teams. I want to hear what you have to say about the Eagles, Giants, and Washington football team as well.
Right. So I'll give just my quick baseline of 1, 2, 3, 4 of how I see this division playing out for the entire year. I really think it is split between the top two teams and the bottom two teams. I think it is between Dallas and Washington for the division, and the Giants and the Eagles are scrambling for third and fourth. And I really don't see the Giants or the Eagles having a chance to make the playoffs, unfortunately. So for me, this is really a two-headed race between Dallas and Washington. I see Dallas slightly edging Washington, but I think it's going to be a battle. I think they will each split within their 1-1 series this year because Washington's defense is lethal. So, with that being said, Dallas number 1, Washington number 2, their defense is arguably the best in the NFL. With that front four and the way that they can get pressure without having to blitz to where they can put 7 back into coverage. If we look back in history, and you asked Tom Brady, right? The GOAT of all GOATs. That is what has really given him pressure throughout his career. The 2 Super Bowls that he lost with the New York Giants. What did the Giants do well? They got pressure with their front four. That's exactly what Washington does. That will keep them in the game, in my opinion, in every single game all year long. It is that front four and then allowing that secondary to just key on the quarterback. Offensively, you bring in Ryan Fitzpatrick, the journeyman quarterback, the guy that is going to sling the football around more than what Washington has had in the last couple of years, right? They have Terry McLaurin. They bring in Curtis Samuel. They draft De'Ami Brown, who Alex will talk about because I'm pretty sure he drafted him in almost every fantasy league that we have. But this Washington offense can be better than last year. They also have Antonio Gibson coming into his second year, who's that kind of do-it-all running back, can run between the tackles, outside, can also catch the ball extremely well. So I think this Washington football team, headed by Ron Rivera, is destined to make the playoffs. It's just a matter of whether you think that you have them winning the division or coming in the wild card. I simply have them coming in the wild card. I don't really want to talk about the Giants or the Eagles because to me they're just kind of pathetic. The Eagles just no. New head coach Jalen Hurts, not really sure what he's going to do. I mean, I guess their defensive line's kind of good, but other than that, they really have no other weapons that I really want to talk about. The Giants are somewhat of the interesting team to me, and I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but I do like Joe Judge and the direction that he is bringing this team in. I like the philosophy and the mentality that he has kind of established with that organization. Saquon Barkley coming back from that scary injury. They think he's going to play week 1, but they want to be, they do want to hold him back and make sure that he's 100% healthy. So we'll see about that. The big problem for me with the Giants is Daniel Jones. Like, ever since he's come into the league, I believe he leads all NFL quarterbacks who qualify in turnovers. That is interceptions and fumbles lost. So to me, as the quarterback, the guy that touches the football every single play, when you're turning the ball over more than you are scoring touchdowns, obviously that's a problem. And that's where I simply cannot trust this Giants team because of their quarterback. I like their coach. I like their defensive pieces and some of what they have offensively. I just simply can't trust their coach. So for that reason, I'm keeping them out of the playoffs. Like I said in the beginning, a 2-headed race, Dallas, Washington. One will win the division. One will make the playoffs as a wild card.
Interesting. So a little different than last year, obviously, with that kind of trash show that happened at the end of the season where the teams were almost losing to get into the playoffs. It was strange. Jared, you didn't say too much that I disagree with, so I'm not going to go too into this. I do want to talk about the Giants because do I think they're the best team in this division? No. Do I think they're the second best team in this division? No. But I do think that this team, and I talked about this when we talked about kind of our free agent overviews early in the season. They actually added quite a bit this season, and they get Nate Solder back as their top offensive lineman. He was a sit out at quarterback last year. One of the reasons that Daniel Jones, wasn't as good as he was. When you don't have a good offensive line, it's tough for any NFL quarterback. They add talent like Kenny Golladay. They get Saquon Barkley back. Obviously, that's the big one. So this team really didn't disprove, right? They improved in the offseason. But you're right. The biggest thing for me is Daniel Jones and whether he can take the advantages of having a little better of a defense, a little better of an offensive line, and a little better of just talent overall on offense and skill players. Can he take that next level? Do I think so? No, because when you look at the scores of a lot of last year's games, even though this team ended 6-10, when they played good opponents, they got killed. Like it was like if you look at it, it's single digit games where they score 9-7 points. I remember when my Cardinals played them last year. We played a horrible game and we still beat them by like 20. You know what I'm saying? That shouldn't be happening in the NFL. So this team is on the rise. I'll say this. I'll give like a hot take here. If everybody stays healthy, the key players stay healthy for the Giants, they have a chance for the playoffs. As long as Daniel Jones just isn't a complete piece of trash. Okay? But this team in this division, though, because Jared, I disagree with you. I don't think the Cowboys are getting anywhere close to 11, 12 wins. I think 11 max. I think they're looking more at a 10 game, 9 game win season. Remember, it's a little different this year. We had the 17th game, so you're going to get a lot of those. I guess 12-11 doesn't mean the same as it used to. We're going to have a quite a bit more 13-win teams this year in the NFL. But I think Washington won't have that good a record either, and I think the Giants, you never know, they could sneak in that wild card, or if this division does turn into crap like it did last year, or if certain players get hurt like last year, the Giants might have a chance. Eagles, no. But I agree with you. It's probably Washington and the Cowboys. I just would prefer Washington because of their defense. I'm always going to go top defense over offense. Alex, what's your thoughts on the NFC East?
I think, to give my order, I think it goes Washington football team, Cowboys, very close. That those games could, if it's flip-flopped to what Jared says, I would totally agree. I wouldn't be surprised. I think with having Fitzpatrick in there instead of, Taylor Heineke or Alex Smith or Dwayne Haskins, you're going to see a lot more explosive offense. You're going to see they have some deep downfield weapons. So I don't think it's going to be – I think their offense is going to be significantly better. And I mean significantly better this year. I think you're going to see the football team putting up a lot of points. And I think you're going to see them have some blowouts. Like when they play the Eagles, it's going to be a 35-10 type game. They're not going to be keep it close. They might squeak out wins football team like it was last year when they were winning games. They're going to have some explosive games. So that's going to be scary, I think, for the Cowboys. The Eagles, they're competing for the first overall pick, in my opinion. Them, Texans, and Lions. It's kind of like who's going to shoot themselves in the foot and win a game this year. And the Giants are just Daniel Jones is a liability. And I know we're doing game previews later, but I can't wait for my Broncos to play in week 1. I think minimum 4 sacks and 2 turnovers for the Broncos. The Broncos might outscore their own offense this week, which I can't wait for. So Daniel Jones is a liability. They're praying to God Saquon Barkley can touch the ball 400 times this year so that they don't have to give the ball to Daniel Jones in late game situations. Their secondary is really nice. It's nice. James Bradbury is nice. Cool. They don't have no pass rush. Leonard Williams is nice. There's nothing to be excited about, in my opinion, about the Giants. If they were smart, they would be trying to compete with the Eagles for a first overall pick. But they have hype with Daniel. This is their last chance with Daniel Jones. I think if Daniel Jones,
I agree with that.
If Daniel Jones has Daniel Jones season, I think he's out.
See, and I'm glad you brought that up. I want Daniel Jones to have just a little better than a Daniel Jones season, just so the Giants are forced to give him a long-term contract, and then they're stuck with him for another 3 to 4 years. That would make me the happiest Cowboy fan of all.
Jared, it's gonna happen. It's what I'm talking about, bro. These little additions are gonna make it interesting, but it's not gonna be good for the franchise as a whole. I mean, maybe Joe Judge is just like an amazing head coach, right? And he ends up taking, he did learn from what? It was Nick Saban, right? Was he Alabama? Bill Belichick.
He actually might have been with both.
Was
but
he
I know
Alabama before that? Yeah, I don't know, but at least Bill Belichick. And so, you never know. Those guys fall off the tree. It could be like a Vrabel situation where the team ends up getting the AFC Championship. It could be interesting, but you're right. I think that unless Daniel Jones just completely craps the bed this season, Giants fans are going to be like, what do we even think about this team, right? Like, do we even like this guy? Like, I don't think they have to give him an extension yet because he was drafted, 3 years ago? So they don't have to.
This is his 3rd year now, yeah?
Yes, they don't have to pay him yet either.
Yeah.
So that there is that other year looming, for Daniel Jones. So, for Daniel Jones, he's like, let me just get to next year. That's all that matters. No, I'll just keep playing football, and maybe I'll get a little extension. I'll play backup for the rest of my career. I don't know, but
keep stealing money.
Yeah, I just, the thing I'll leave off with the NFC East is, there's three solid quarterbacks in this division. You got Dak Prescott, you got Ryan Fitzpatrick, and you got Jalen Hurts. And what I mean by solid quarterbacks is they know how to run with a football. Because Daniel Jones, when he fell running on his own last year, face first into the ground, I was like, there's no way that guy can be your franchise quarterback. There's just no way.
That's
There's
that's I don't want to say butt fumble-esque, but it's like in that category of like,
it's there.
Winning quarterbacks don't do that.
It's worse.
It's not worse. The butt fumble is the worst football play to exist. I'm willing to hijack the rest of this show to debate that.
Okay.
Ooh, you might have something there.
He lost the ball and then the other team scored.
That's true.
True. You're right. If we're encapsulating the entire play, yes, that was worse than what. But I mean, Daniel Jones just got sniped. It's like.
It's just because he runs with his chest.
Saving Private Ryan.
He runs with his chest in front of his head. It's weird. It's very strange.
I mean, listen, I think as much as I would love to continue bashing on the Giants and Daniel Jones, we do need to move on. We got a lot of more divisions. We have 7 other divisions to get into. So let's wrap up this Cowboys division. I think all of us can agree. Some type of order of Dallas and or Washington will be at the top. And I think we can also agree that the team that does not win the division has a legitimate chance to make the wild card as another playoff team.
Absolutely fair. Yeah, I think we all agree it's Dallas and Washington at the top. And by the way, Daniel Jones, if he wouldn't have fell on that play, I believe the Giants would have won that game, and they would have ended the season 7-9, and I believe they might have made the playoffs. So I'm just telling you that right now.
God,
Giants might have made the playoffs last year if Daniel Jones doesn't fall. That's how big that play was. Okay, Alex. All right, but we'll move on. Alex, it's your turn for the NFC South. Give your whole opinion, and then Jared and I will just kind of take some points off of it and talk about it.
Yeah. I think this is very similar to the NFC East, where it's split into 2 categories. You got the Bucs; they just won the Super Bowl. They're kind of presumptive, going to be the kings of the division. But I think very closely, I think a lot closer than a lot of people are thinking, the Saints are right there. And then you got Carolina and the Falcons, and that's going to be just fun to watch. Those are going to be the teams that you're like, ooh, I'm going to start my defense against those teams this week. I'm going to pick up a defense off the waiver wire for my fantasy league to start against them, because they're going to be so bad. But the Bucs, like everyone knows, they've turned all 22. I think it's the first time this has happened, that you bring all the starters back from the Super Bowl, or second time.
It's kind of
the Raiders did it in the 70s.
Doesn't count. Doesn't count.
It's
not the same thing.
Yeah, totally different salary cap situation now. But yeah, totally agree. It's very tough to bring all the players back. Again, it's one of those teams where even if they have an injury, I think they're fine. Like, they are one of the deepest rosters in the whole league. JPP goes down, cool, you're fine. You got Joe Tyron, you have Shaq Barrett still to fill in the gaps. You lose one of your corners, they have like 3 guys on the bench who will probably be number 1s or number 2s other places. The only flaw that they might have this year is Tom Brady and that, potential cliff that we've talked about for the last 10 years with him. I don't think it's going to happen this year. I haven't won my fantasy league, so I'm hoping pushing that next year. But it just seems like all systems are go for them to continue a long run into the playoffs with this year. Now, the Saints are the fun one to talk about for me. They're bringing in Jameis Winston, got his LASIK. And I think you're going to see the Saints adding some firepower to this offense, able to attack downfield. The last 2 seasons, they haven't been able to attack the field, with any depth because of Drew Brees' arm. So I think it's going to add a little bit of a wrinkle. You're going to see Alvin Kamara is going to get all the touches he wants because he's going to have an open underneath the whole season. And their defense, they lost a couple guys, but they brought in a couple guys. They brought in Bradley Roby. They brought in Desmond Trufant to fill in some corner spots. They still have their key pieces of Cam Jordan and Marshawn Lattimore. They haven't lost that soul of their defense yet. They lost Trey Hendrickson, who, in my opinion, benefited from being on the opposite side of Cam Jordan. I think if we're going to watch him in Cincinnati, I think he's going to stink it up. So I don't think that's a big loss for them. So I think they're bringing back a lot of the same players, and I think they're upping their quarterback play. So, and this is the team that almost beat the Bucs last year in the playoffs with a backup quarterback. So we'll see what happens. I'm excited about those two going after it. I think I can see the Saints being double-digit win team. I think the Bucs will be one of those 12 or 13 win teams. And then we get to the Carolina Panthers. They all depend on what Sam Darnold has. I kind of feel really bad for Sam Darnold. He's leaving a New York Jets team right when they get an offensive line and offensive weapons. Like the thing they wouldn't give him his entire career in New York. And now Zach Wilson gets to start with the, keys to the offense. So it really does depend if Joe Brady can revitalize Sam Darnold's career, if he can protect the ball, not sack himself. And because he does have some weapons. You got Christian McCaffrey as a nice little security blanket, but it just depends if he can. He's like a Daniel Jones, in my opinion. Like, he's so volatile that the team will be dependent on his play. And then we got the Falcons. Matty Ice. Late in his career, I don't think he has that Tom Brady juice to continue it for very long. He lost Julio Jones. His running game is Mike Davis, which is nice, but it's behind one of the worst offensive lines in the league. I just don't see that team scoring a lot of points. And I don't see that team stopping a lot of points on defense either. It is going to be a rough season, I think, for the Falcons. They are also in my, they're going to be competing in that top 5 for the first overall pick. I'm excited for Kyle Pitts, though. That's going to be fun to watch.
Probably the only thing interesting about that Falcons team. Jared, your thoughts on what Alex had to say, and then just real quick thoughts on the AFC or NFC South. Excuse me.
Yeah, this is a debate show, right? And we're supposed to be sitting here debating each other, arguing. If our voices get a little high, it's okay. But I mean, I can't really argue with much of what Alex had to say there. I think he's really spot on, right? How can we not say that the Buccaneers are going to repeat as division champs? Like you mentioned, Alex, bring all 22 of their starters back. They still have Tom Brady, who has not gotten over that cliff yet. And all the weapons that they have, you're right, even if they lose a piece. Chris Godwin, who we didn't mention when we were originally talking about this matchup that's coming up tonight between Dallas and the Bucs. Chris Godwin has a quad injury. And I think he is going to play, but that's one of those things as well. If Chris Godwin were to have to miss a game, it's not the end of the world. They've still got Mike Evans. They still have Antonio Brown. I'm sorry, I'm blanking. Is it Chris Hogan? I'm not sure if he's still there, but they still have pieces.
Scotty Miller.
And I think that Scotty Miller. Thank you for correcting me. The thing about Tom Brady that makes him so great is that he elevates the play of not only his starters and his star players, but the depth guys as well, right? I think that's one of the underlying things that's made Tom Brady so great, and what makes quarterbacks in general great is that they can lift up those guys that are like just average and make them look great. Like, I'm sorry, like Wes Welker when in New England, Wes Welker should not have been a Pro Bowl, one of the best slot receivers to come out of New England, right? Tom Brady does that to guys. So you're right. I think even if they do lose a couple pieces, it's a long season. It will be the longest NFL season in history. There are going to be some injuries. There will be some bruises and bumps. I'm sorry, but I think you're right. Tom Brady and the Bucs will win the division. The Saints will come in number 2. I am excited to see what Jameis does. He's going to throw it around, right? Whether he throws it to the right receiver or not, I don't know, right? The guy did throw 30 interceptions in 1 year. Should have been the defensive player of the year for how many times he gave the ball up. But I do trust that Sean Payton can keep Jameis Winston in check and say, hey, when in doubt, give the ball to Alvin Kamara and get out of the way. It is a little bit almost like the NFC East, to where it's the top 2 and then the bottom 2. For Carolina and Atlanta, I think they have some, as Alex has said so far, nice pieces, right? Like Christian McCaffrey, great fantasy guy. If you're watching Red Zone on your TV, Christian McCaffrey's going to be all over that. Probably the same thing with Calvin Ridley and Kyle Pitts for the Atlanta Falcons, but they don't have the quarterback pieces or just the pieces around them as a team to win. So they will be scraping for third and fourth in that division, and probably both top 10 draft picks coming up next year. The one thing I will say about Sam Darnold, I don't necessarily feel too bad for him. Yes, I think he got the short end of the stick with the Jets, but coming into Carolina, you do have Christian McCaffrey, who I think we can all agree is probably the best all-around running back in the entire NFL. DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, those aren't bad weapons to have. And
That's great weapons.
And Joe Brady, who is so far what we think is a great offensive mind coming from LSU, now in his second year in the NFL. So I don't necessarily feel too bad for him. It's just the fact that what's that offensive line going to look like? Is he going to have protection? And is that defense going to be able to keep them in games? So that would be my biggest thing when it comes to Sam Darnold.
Yeah, they're projected to be a bottom 5 offensive line. So.
Yeah, Sam Darnold did not have a Christian McCaffrey, although he did have Le'Veon Bell, but Le'Veon Bell is proving to be a product of that Steelers offense.
No, not even the same stratosphere.
The guy is a practice squad running back now with the Ravens. So, Darnold definitely has better weapons. I'll say the only thing I disagree with you guys on with this is that I think the Panthers will be a very scrappy team. I do believe in Sam Darnold when he's healthy. Now, if he's unhealthy, it's just going to be the same thing that's always happened with him. The team's going to win like 4 or 5 games because they don't really have a quarterback. And that happens to anybody, right? That could happen to any team. But I do think this Panthers team, with their style of offense and their creative weapons, they're going to kind of be like those Falcons in the last couple of years where they'll be able to score some points. Their defense is just so bad that they'll lose some games based on their defense. I do see this Panthers team being like 6-7, maybe an 8-win team, right? But like nowhere near the playoffs. The only other thing I'll say about this division, because I agree with literally everything else you guys said, I do love that Jameis Winston won the quarterback job. Because I thought that they were just gonna kind of give it to him because Taysom Hill wasn't good enough. But Winston seemed to earn the job, which I like. And I think Peyton has all confidence in him. And I'm interested to see, the best Jameis Winston realistically probably we've seen since he was at Florida State and won the national championship. Because he did lose the next year in college. So the only other thing I'll say about the NFC South until I move on to my NFC West is that when you look at the strength of schedule for the NFC South, it's the easiest. The NFC South has the easiest strength of schedule. So you never know. You might see like that Panthers team win a couple games and maybe sneak into the playoffs, right? Or the Buccaneers will have a very good record because they have an easy schedule, or the Saints will be able to get into the playoffs because they have an easy schedule, right? So that's the only thing I'll add to this, that clearly the NFC South has the easiest schedule in the NFL combined between the 4 teams. The second actually was the NFC East. A lot of that's due to the fact that their records last year were so bad that they were, competing against each other. And so there's a little bias there. But more legitimately, the NFC South has the easiest strength of schedule. So you never know. You sneak in that Carolina, or you have the Saints, in that 5th spot in the playoffs instead of that 6th or 7th. All right, I'll move into the NFC West. Speaking of strength of schedule, this is you got to think this is the most difficult because of the 6 teams that each of these teams has to play every single year. I am a Cardinals fan, guys. You know this. I'm not trying to hide it. I don't try to hide it on social media. I don't try to hide it on this podcast, right? But it sucks that this is our division because I feel like our team is potentially a division winner in a lot of other divisions in the NFL this year. And with the talent we have on offense and defense, I think this team is a very, very good NFL team. Maybe not a Super Bowl contender because there's still a couple questions about Kyler. There's questions about our defense. There's even some questions about
coach.
Exactly. Yeah, you took it right out of my mouth, 100%. And that's probably the biggest thing this year. I'll say this for the Cardinals. If Cliff Kingsbury is legit, they might win this division. If he's not, they're looking at 3rd, 4th place, realistically. Looking at the rest of this division, you have the Rams, who add a quarterback, because they didn't have a quarterback the last couple of years. They had a signal caller, and they had a guy that was essentially a puppet to Sean McVay. You know, we all heard the stories. He's taken up plays up until the 14-second mark of the play clock, and he's essentially just doing what the coaches are telling him in his ear during plays. It's almost cheating at that point. But Jared Goff was semi-successful at that. He did get to a Super Bowl. But, you know, when they didn't have a super team, he didn't seem to be as good. And now he's shipped off to Detroit and will end up, you know, fighting for that top 5 draft pick this year. But you have Matt Stafford, right? And Matt Stafford's been pretty successful in Detroit for having some god-awful teams, right? He's had trouble staying healthy. And it's kind of a wild card for me what the quarterback position is with the Rams. I do believe it's better, but is it going to take them to that next Super Bowl level? I don't know, because you don't know how healthy Stafford is. He's not getting any younger. And was he a product of kind of being down by a bunch of points in Detroit a lot, and these shootout games against the Packers and the Bears and all these teams? You know, a lot of those years the Bears were really bad, right? And they weren't that good of a team, and they didn't have the defense they have now. And the Packers defense was really bad, right? So, like, you look at that division, you know, and it's interesting. So with the Rams, I think they're one of the top teams, but they easily could be right in the middle in this division if Stafford doesn't play up to par or he's hurt, right? They have the number 1 defense that will help, so it does give them a little points. The Seattle Seahawks are interesting. You have Russell Wilson. He's one of the best quarterbacks of all time. I hate to say that, but he is. Last year, they had the worst defense in the league. I don't think it improved that much, right? And offensive line isn't that good either. They have DK Metcalf. They have the offensive weapons, but it kind of reminds me a little bit of almost like a higher version of the Panthers, right? Like, you have Russell Wilson leading the Panthers, they're going to make the playoffs. You have Sam Darnold leading the Seahawks, they're not, right? It's almost the same kind of roster in a little bit. Maybe a little bit better offensive weapons, but and a little better offensive line than the Panthers have. But the Seahawks team will go as far as Russ takes them. Then you have the 49ers. You know, they won't even tell you who their quarterback is. Shanahan's now fighting with the media over it, which is always great when your head coach is fighting with the media before the season even starts. It's probably going to be Jimmy G, but we might see Trey Lance. This team will be a lot healthier this year. Which will be interesting specifically on defense because, you know, oh my goodness, did they get hurt a lot last year, right, guys? Like, it was kind of ridiculous. So they'll go as far as they're healthy too. If I had to predict the division, because it's almost impossible to do this with what I just explained, I'm going to go the Rams will be in first place. I'm going to go solely because their defense. I think Stafford will stay healthy. Offensive line is good enough, but it's probably the worst Rams offensive line that's been since they moved to LA.
It's getting old.
Yeah, it's getting old. Or at least that second year in LA. It's the worst offensive line they've had. They'll get first place though. 12 wins, maybe 11, something like that. They'll get first place. I'm going to put my Cardinals in second place. As far as the team goes, they're the most complete team on offense and defense and special teams. The kicking situation is a little bit interesting. We had Zane Gonzalez, who I thought last year was the best kicker in the league, and he turned into like the most unclutch kicker ever, and actually was one of the reasons we didn't make the playoffs. So the kicking game is a little interesting for me. Besides that, the Cardinals have a real good young core on defense in Budda Baker and Zaven Collins and Isaiah Simmons. Obviously, we all know the cornerbacks position not only got hit with Patrick Peterson leaving, but now Malcolm Butler has just disappeared, and nobody knows what's happening with him. And so the cornerback position will be the worst on this team. But the defensive line with J.J. Watt and Chandler Jones returning to a full season and just an overall good defensive line and good depth is, I think, one of the best in the NFL. So, you know, and then you look at offense. Our offensive line, I've explained, is the top 15 offensive line, and actually even the top 10 a lot of times last year. That will go a long ways as long as they stay healthy. It will help Kyler Murray be able to run the ball. It will help him be able to pass the ball, right? And you got the weapons of DeAndre Hopkins, AJ Green, right? Christian Kirk, Chase Edmonds, who I thought was the best running back for the Cardinals last year. And I'm glad he's starting. So, yeah, I think Cardinals get second place. They're the most complete team. And the only thing that will make them not do that is Cliff Kingsbury. Third place will be the Seahawks. and the 49ers will get 4th place. But I could see all these teams having double-digit wins, legitimately, especially in a 17-year season. I'm going to predict that every single team has double-digit wins, and every single team will be fighting for a wild card spot, legitimately, in this division.
Wow.
And that's my NFC West.
And so now is when we get into the debate show. Got it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have the Niners winning the division.
Look at this. Yeah, here we go.
I got Rams number 2. I have Cardinals 3 and Seahawks 4.
Okay.
And let me tell you, I'll be quick about it, but let's
absolutely.
The Niners, I think worst case scenario, they have Jimmy G as their quarterback, and he's taking them to a Super Bowl. And that team is going to just. Are we allowed to cuss on this show?
Only the TV 14 words, but I can always blank it out.
Got it. I won't say it. Thanks. This is not. It was going to be vulgar. It's going to be explicit. They are going to shove the ball down your face. Jared, you can probably assume what I was going to say. They are going to crush you with the running game. Their defensive line is going to be a monster. You got Eric Armstead still. Nick Bosa's coming back. They just paid their star middle linebacker, Warner.
Fred Warner.
He's awesome.
Yeah.
I think this team is going to suffocate teams. I think that's exactly what Shanahan loves to do. He wants to stop you on defense real hard, turn the ball over, sack you, and then he's just going to make you watch his offense spend 12 minutes going 4 yards, 4 yards, 4 yards, 4 yards. That he's just rubbing your face in. I think, and if they do put Trey Lance in, then you have now explosive deep down the field offense. I think either one of those quarterbacks can run his offense differently and successfully. The Rams, like you said, their top layer of talent on that team is phenomenal. You got Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald. We don't need to see all the players again. But there is nothing underneath it. One injury. If Aaron Donald goes down, that team falls apart. And how many teams can you say that when the nose tackle is injured, that, destroys your defense? And I think it would. So much of what they do is dependent on Aaron Donald taking on triple teams and winning. So I think that they are in a house of cards in terms of their roster. They have a very elite top layer, but when injuries start and then we have an extended season, I just don't, we don't like injuries, but I would bet on the Rams having catastrophic injuries and then them just not succeeding later on in the season. The Cardinals, I think this is one of the divisions I think there could be multiple wild cards out of. Because the Cardinals are going to be good. They are going to compete. They're going to put points up. They're going to have takeaways. I don't believe in Cliff Kingsbury. And I think also they might have the worst 3 quarterback rooms in the NFL.
I don't disagree. I think it's the one thing. Yeah.
If you go off of PFF, besides the quarterback, corners are the most important piece of a team's roster building. So it's hard to say they're going to be successful on defense when that's going on with them. And then the Seahawks, Russell Wilson just covers so many holes that it makes it look like they're a great team and oh man, he has the best moon ball in the league, and DK Metcalf is a X-Men and all these things. But yeah, I think you already touched on it as well. One of the worst offensive lines, the worst defense, and they got worse this year. They lost KJ to the Raiders. So I don't see the Seahawks doing absolutely anything except put up points, but they're going to give up more points than they put up. So I got Niners, Rams, Cardinals, Seahawks. This might be one we need to write down
Save this one, bookmark this one. I like that, Alex, a little better than what Nick had. I'm gonna start from the bottom up.
Okay. Teasing us.
Yeah. Number 4, the Cardinals.
Wow.
I'm sorry, Nick. Here's why I'm doing it. You guys talked about that secondary, and in a league where it is pass happy, we have now, unless you have a legitimate running back, we have turned into college football in a sense, right? Where there's motion on every single play. You're basically starting out in a 3 wide receiver sets. Tight ends now like Darren Waller and Travis Kelce and Kyle Pitts are basically, and Kittle are basically tight ends. Are basically wide receivers, just bigger, right? And so to me, when it comes, I get it, that pass rush is nice, but if that pass rush does not get home, the Cardinals are going to be giving up a lot of points. And while I do like Kyler Murray and the weapons that they have, there's two things I don't trust, or three things, I'm sorry, including the Cardinals secondary. Two things offensively that I don't trust: Cliff Kingsbury and the offensive line. And when I can't trust the head coach, when I can't trust the offensive line to protect their quarterback, it's simply not going to work. Look what happened to Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. You do not have an offensive line. I think we can all agree that Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in all of football. And he didn't have an offensive line for that game. And to me, the Cardinals don't have a good enough offensive line, in my opinion. I know, Nick, you put them top 15, top 10. I don't know. I don't see it. And I look at it as winning one-on-one matchups, not as an offensive line as a whole. So to me, I'm putting the Cardinals at number 4. I'm putting the Seahawks at number 3. You know who the Seahawks remind me of? The 2020 Seattle Seahawks. The 2019 Seattle Seahawks. 2018 Seattle Seahawks, right? I mean, literally, it's the same team every year. We say it every single year. Oh, yeah, they've got some nice weapons. Their offensive line sucks. Their defense isn't great. Oh, but they've got Russell Wilson, who, like Alex, like you mentioned, covers up so many holes and just kind of makes them look like a really good team. And somehow, some way, every year, they always squeak or sneak into the playoffs, right? It's like, we literally, it doesn't matter if you're like an NFL analyst, Adam Schefter, or if you're us or who it is, every year it's the same thing. And we're like, there's no way they can make the playoffs. Their defense sucks. Russell Wilson's going to be running for his life. And they somehow find a way to win 8, 9, 10, sometimes 11 games. They play every division opponent very tough. They don't get blown out in those types of games. So I can see, I don't know if it's possible, but I can, I can see all 4 of these teams making the playoffs. I don't know if that's possible at all. But for the Seahawks specifically, I'm not counting them out simply because of Russell Wilson and because every single year we count them out and then he makes the playoffs. Number 2, I'm going with the 49ers. And I loved your arguments, Alex, and you almost made me flip-flop and put the 49ers at number 1. The reason why I'm not is simply because we don't really know who their quarterback is, right? And where is that consistency going to come from? Like, I think if you're Kyle Shanahan, I think he's looking from it at a standpoint of, I think, we have a leg up because defenses don't necessarily know what package I'm going to bring in. I could bring in Jimmy G and we can just run the ball down your throat, do some play action, or I could bring in Trey Lance and we can have a more explosive offense and we can do some more play action things, right? But on the flip side of that, where's like the consistency? If you ask the center, if you ask the offensive linemen, if you ask the receivers, like cadence, I mean, you want to have that consistency that, hey, I know this guy's going to be in the game. You know what Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance do differently? They throw the ball different. Like, even though they're both right-handed, there's a difference between catching a Jimmy G ball and a Trey Lance ball.
Different velo for sure.
Yes. So to me, I'm just looking more of it from a consistency standpoint. I think they have the pieces there. We all talked about the defensive pieces that are coming back and how good they're going to be on that side of the ball. I would just like more continuity if I'm an offensive player on that team. I just want to know who's my starting quarterback. Not necessarily we have 2 guys that can play. A lot of times when you have 2, you don't really have none. And I think that's rare here, but I go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to touch on it. I think there's a potential that in the locker room, they know who the starting quarterback is. And he's just not telling the media, forces the defenses. Now I got to put a defensive package in for like stopping Trey Lance's running out of the backfield. I think they're using him almost as like a Taysom Hill type situation where he's going to be a goal line. They might throw him in there for one play, like 1st and 5, throw Trey Lance in, give him a triple option read situation, then run it. 'Cause I don't know if you watch those SF games in preseason, he looks like Colin Kaepernick. Like it was like the first thing I saw. I'm like, this guy's can be very dangerous if he can be accurate and then just bounce it outside and run it in. I think he's going to be that kind of dual threat type quarterback, and they might use him as Taysom Hill type packages near the goal line. So all that does is force the defenses. Now that's another thing they got to practice. I think that's the only reason why Kyle Shanahan hasn't mentioned it. I think Jimmy Garoppolo is the starting quarterback. You'll see him for 90% of the plays. That's all I wanted to say. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, and I agree with you. You're right, and if it is that Taysom Hill package, I think it needs to be very, kind of specific and knowing, okay, in these situations, it can't be a sporadic, oh, what should we do? What should we do? Let's call a timeout and then figure it out. It's got to be, we need to have a game plan going in of, okay, in these situations, you're right, goal line, 1st and 5. It's, I don't know, 4th and 1, we need to go for it because we're on our own 50 or something like that. Those specific type of plays. I like I said, from an offensive standpoint, maybe they do know in the locker room and they're obviously just not telling the media because they don't have to. But for as of right now, I'm going off of the facts that we don't know. And so to me, I look at it as who is your actual quarterback, who's going to be throwing the ball, slinging the ball around 90% of the time. And then number 1, I do have the Rams. Alex, I think you're dead on. Their top talent is amazing, and then the depth is not that great. But I'm not going to sit here and bank that they're going to get catastrophic injuries. I'm going to sit here and bank that they're going to be able to make it throughout the year. And when you have Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey on that defense, yes, they're going to get turnovers. They're going to be disruptive. And offensively, when we look at this Rams team, right, they really should have won the Super Bowl a couple years ago. And they should have made the playoffs last year. What was the one thing that was hindering them? Quarterback. They now have that. Yes, their offensive line is aging and getting older, but I do like the weapons that they have. I think Matthew Stafford is that missing piece for this team, and I think he is going to elevate them enough. I think the one thing we can all agree on, it's kind of somewhat of a crapshoot, right? I think all 3 of our opinions could be right, and this will be one of the most fun divisions to watch all year long, because whether it's the Rams, who I have at number 1, or the Cardinals, who I have losing the entire division, I think that could completely get flip-flopped. And I'm not necessarily sitting here confident in saying the Rams are going to win, but we have to make a pick. That's what I went with.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Well, let's just leave it at that, because it doesn't get more debate than that. All of us literally having completely different agendas for the division. So we'll just leave it at that. And you guys tell us in the comments or on social media who you agreed with. We did have 2 Rams first place votes, but besides that, everything else was topsy-turvy. But besides, obviously, the Cardinals winning the division, which we all agree on that most likely isn't going to happen. So let's move to the NFC North. And Jared, that's going to be your division. So go through that. What an interesting division this has been for at least one team. But yeah, talk about the rest of that division as well and get into it.
Yeah, I don't want to give it away too much, and I really don't think we're going to have to spend as much time as we did on the NFC West in this division. I think this is Green Bay's division to lose, right? You get Aaron Rodgers back. Davante Adams decides to, not hold out or not be a diva receiver and come back. It's kind of like the last dance for these two. I think the writing is on the wall that this will be Aaron Rodgers' last year in Green Bay, regardless of the outcome. And Davante Adams, him and his representatives have chosen to not talk negotiations anymore with Green Bay. So this is essentially his last year in Green Bay as well, and then he will be gone. You take away Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams from this Packers offense, from this Packers, one of the worst teams in the NFL, right? So I think we are all in on Green Bay this year. The last 2 years, getting to the NFC Championship game, not being able to get over the hump. I think that is kind of sitting in these players' minds. And to me, I don't really see much competition for Green Bay in this division. I think if I had to pick, if you had to put a gun to my head, I would probably say the Chicago Bears, because I do like their defense. I think their defense is nasty, and I think it will keep them in games. Problem is, they're starting this dude named Andy Dalton. And I'm sorry, but I think the best chance for them to win is Justin Fields. I think this is a debate that all 3 of us could sit here and talk about who should be the starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears. In my opinion, it is Justin Fields, not necessarily just because they drafted him with their first overall pick and they drafted him so high. To me, the old adage was, rookie quarterbacks, there's such a big learning curve. They need to sit. It's better if they can be an Aaron Rodgers. And in today's sports, right, these athletes that are growing up have been playing since they were 5, 6, 7 years old, right? The learning curves, I think, that we are seeing from athletes that go from high school to college and then college to the professional level has taken such a major turn that I think these guys coming into the league now are more pro ready. Like, is anyone really 100% ready right when they get drafted? No one. It doesn't matter the position. There's always going to be some type of learning curve, something that you're going to have to adjust to on the fly. I think guys like Trevor Lawrence, guys like Mac Jones, guys like Justin Fields, they are as prepared as they are ever going to be starters in this league. So in my opinion, if I'm Matt Nagy, it's not a debate for me. I get it. You paid Andy Dalton $10 million. Guess what? You either eat that $10 million with him on the bench, or you say, listen, let's find a way to trade you so you're not a disturbance anymore. But for the Chicago Bears, if they want a legitimate chance to win this year because they have the defense, Justin Fields is the guy. Unfortunately, it will be Andy Dalton. That's why I have the Chicago Bears at number 2. At number 3, I do have the Minnesota Vikings. I think they have some shiny pieces, right? Kirk Cousins is a good fantasy quarterback. He'll probably put up some numbers. Dalvin Cook is one of the best running backs in the league. We all get that. No, Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson, a great duo at receiver, but no offensive, or I don't want to say no offensive line, but the offensive line is suspect. And the defense, I think, is kind of Swiss cheese. And so when you're going up against Aaron Rodgers, I look, the defense last year, Alex, it seems like you're disagreeing with me, but the defense last year was horrible. And in the preseason, so
agree with that.
You can attest to this. Week 1, Denver in the preseason smoked them. So I don't see how this Minnesota team can be any type of consistent. I mean, can they win 6-7 games? Yeah, sure, they can. But I don't see them even sniffing the playoffs because I don't think they're any type of consistent. And then you've got the Detroit Lions rounding up the 4. I agree with Alex. He mentioned it earlier. I think the Lions are going to be fighting for that number 1 overall pick going into next year's draft. They get Jared Goff. Congratulations. And yeah, they have Dan Campbell who wants to eat guys' kneecaps. So that's a it's a real good sign for the Lions right there. Yeah, that's it. Like I said, I don't think this really needs to be as big of a discussion as the NFC West. So, Alex, why don't you agree or disagree?
I agree with your first pick. I agree with your first and your fourth pick. I think the Packers are like a better version of the Seahawks, where Aaron Rodgers covers so many holes. He's like the butter over sourdough bread. It looks smooth, but it's all.
I like it.
He's out of control awesome. But that team is so thin offensively, defensively. This might be the year where we see a flip, or not flip, like you might see them regress this year. They haven't drafted for crap the last 5 years. They've been drafting Rashawn Gary, first round pick, guy sucks. They drafted Eric Stokes this year, I think it was their first or second round pick, a corner out of Georgia. All he does is, he has like a 4.3 40, but he has hands like feet. So their drafting strategy makes no sense. David Bakhtiari is going to be out the first 6 weeks, so then we saw that was an issue for Aaron Rodgers for most of the year last year. So as much as I'm like suspect about the Packers, I still think they win the division. You get 4 easy wins from the Bears and the Lions, probably another 5th from the one from the Vikings. And that's where I disagree with you on Chicago and Minnesota. I think Chicago's defense is going to suck this year. You're talking about how they're like a stud defense. They lost Akeem Nicks. They lost Kyle Fuller. He's on the Broncos now. Thank you. Yeah, I think the Browns defense is going to suck this year.
The Bears.
The Browns, the Bears defensive line, their whole defense is going to suck. It's going to be Andy Dalton throwing turnovers. They're going to be on the field for so long, and they lost pieces. They have Jalen Johnson. Cool, that's their number 1 corner now. What's Khalil Mack? He wasn't that great last year, anyways.
Okay, Jared, I got it.
Go
ahead.
But I think the Vikings potentially could win the division. I think the Vikings are like the Rams, where they're
What's in that cup? What's in the cup? You've been
it ain't coffee.
Yeah.
It ain't coffee.
This is insane.
Dalvin Cook is great. They've invested in the last 2 years in that offensive line, which is now getting better. And I think that it's going to be actually a good offensive line this year. They have Justin Jefferson's on the left. They got Adam Thielen on the right. They are going to be, I think they're going to be throwing the ball a lot more this year. I think they're going to be dangerous with the passing game. Now for their defense, they bring in Patrick Peterson, your boy, Nick, up that secondary. They still have Harrison Smith. They get Daniil Hunter back. They get Everson Griffin back. You know, like they're gonna have both their middle linebackers gonna be healthy. I mean, it's fine. I'll down the hill for this one. I think they're second in the division. They potentially could win the wild card. They potentially might win the division if, like, Aaron Rodgers loses any more offensive linemen. And then you got the Bears at third. Andy Dalton is a absolute train wreck. You got to watch it last year, you know, up close and personal, Jared. And I think their defense is taking a big step back. And then you got, I mean, the Lions, they're there. Someone has to play.
Woo. Well, I had to take out my earpods. Take out my earpods and make sure that I was tuning in to the right channel here.
Okay. First of all, I got Packers in first, but yeah, this is absolutely a what do you win or bust, Super Bowl or bust. I mean, literally, it's Super Bowl or bust. And realistically, it's Super Bowl and bust or bust. Like, this team is disintegrating after this year. Davante Adams isn't coming back. I mean, maybe he comes back if they win a Super Bowl, but Aaron Rodgers is done after this year, at least with the Packers. Hopefully not in the NFL, because I still love to watch him. But yeah, Packers I think are the best. They have the best roster overall and the best quarterback and all that stuff. Lions are last place. Now, they do have a solid offensive line when you look at PFF rankings, and they have a good running back in DeAndre Swift, and Jared Goff is not a bad play-action quarterback. So they'll steal some games here and there. I don't think they're the worst team in the NFL. I think there's teams that are worse, but they're not good, and I'm not going to last long. But it's just an interesting dynamic. You have a kind of a hard-nosed coach in Dan Campbell. They might sneak and win like 5 games this year, okay? This is where I disagree with Alex almost completely, okay? The Vikings last year had a bottom 10 offense and defense, and their offensive line coming into this year is ranked in the bottom 10. So I don't know where you're getting your statistics. Now, I do agree the defense will get better, and the offense will be a little bit better, most likely, right? But again, the offensive line isn't good. Vikings have no chance in making the playoffs, though. And the reason for that is this team, I'm going to go back to the schedule. The NFC North has the most difficult schedule combined in the NFC. The Bears, third most difficult schedule. Packers, fourth. Vikings, fifth. Lions, seventh. Right? Like, literally, this is the toughest division. They're going to have to play a murderer's row of opponents besides themselves to get into the playoffs. So I think this is a one playoff team, easy division. Who that's going to be, it depends on the Packers. But I don't think the Vikings have any chance. And I actually think the Vikings might end up with less wins than the Lions, realistically, because of just the poorness of both the offensive and defensive production. It's just so average on both sides. It just I don't think so. And the Bears, I think there's a misconception that Justin Fields isn't going to be the quarterback by week 2. Like, Andy Dalton is the sacrificial lamb against the Rams.
Matt Nagy. That's all I'm saying.
But Justin Fields will be the quarterback by week 2, and this team will be solid. I like Justin Fields. I think he's looked good in the preseason. I think he creates a different dynamic than we've seen a lot with the Bears quarterbacks the last couple of years. And, I think they'll be a solid team. Do they have a chance in the playoffs? No. One, I just don't think they're as talented. And I do agree, Alex, their defense isn't as good as it has been the last couple of years, but I don't think it's as bad as you're saying. I think
it's going to regress, and last year it wasn't good. So, like, last year it was like, it wasn't great. It wasn't like the Bears of 2 years ago when it was Khalil Mack was raising hell, all these things. Last year was not great. This year they're worse. That's all I'm saying. So just to say that they're going to be the powerhouse and that's what's going to carry the team, I'm not caring. Yeah.
No, and that's the thing. I think this is just another really average team again. And I think their offense is good enough to get a few wins here and there against some good teams. Their defense is good enough to get a few wins here and there against good teams. Only if Justin Fields is quarterback. If Andy Dalton's quarterback, they're last place. I'm sorry. They're last freaking place. I don't know why you do that to the fan base either. Have that guy be a starting quarterback. I mean, Nick Foles is a better option. And he's on that roster still. So it's like, I got Packers easily winning this division, and I really don't see a reason to talk that much more about the Bears and Vikings and Lions because I just don't think they have any chance at the playoffs.
I have 1 point, but Jared, go first. You had your hand first.
No, I was just going to say the one thing I will say as to the only legitimate argument I can see as to why Matt Nagy would not start Justin Fields right away. The moment you start like a rookie quarterback that you drafted in the first round, there is no going back.
Yeah.
Like you're right. So if you start in week 1 and then he has like 3 bad games in a row, you can't go back because that is almost worse than you know what I mean? So I think that's the only thing is he's like, I'm going to wait till like the very, very, very last second. It's like, we're going to let Andy Dalton play a couple games and then screw it up. And then I'm going to be like, oh yeah, let's just put Justin Fields in because we're not doing well. But the moment you put him in, whether it's him, whether Trey Lance officially takes over, Mac Jones is obviously starting week 1, Trevor Lawrence is obviously starting week 1. The moment you start those guys, there is no going back. And so that would be the only thing that I will, say for Matt Nagy.
Nick, where do you think the Vikings ranked offensively, like in terms of points per game last year?
I'm not sure. I just know they were ranked in the bottom 10 in offense, just period.
They were ranked 4th.
Fourth in points. What was their record?
Offense. I don't know how you would gauge offense then. Well, how else would you gauge it? If they're scoring the 4th most points.
It's okay.
And their offensive line gets better. They just drafted Christian Darrisaw, who might be the Tristan Wirfs of last year.
I'm not basing my whole thing off a rookie offensive lineman though. They maybe what okay, I'll give this credit because I've been doing some research and I realized I might have misspoke and with the offense thing. It was offensive line I was mentioning. The offense itself, because I even said it in my prediction. I'm like, wait a minute, there's no way they had the worst offense because I was remembering last year. So You're correct. You got me on that one. The offensive line is – I just don't get where you're coming with the offensive line prediction because you're saying it's going to be a pretty good offensive line.
I think it'll be a top 15. I think it'll be better than the Cardinals' offensive line.
But the Cardinals' offensive line the last 2 years has been top 15 and is ranked by PFF as the number 11 coming into this year. And they're actually the most healthy they've been coming into a year. They added Rodney Hudson, who's the best center in the league. Yeah. And they really didn't lose anybody. So I don't see how that offense or that offensive line regresses to bottom NFL standard where, unless they get hurt, which has been a Cardinals thing. Cardinals get a lot of guys hurt, especially on the offensive and defensive line. I don't know who our trainer is, but that's I'm not going to predict injuries here. Yeah. But I just don't think the Vikings offensive line, you drafted a rookie, but we've never seen that guy play before. We've never seen him play a full NFL season.
I'm like so invested in this take now. I'm like, no.
The Vikings fan, ladies and gentlemen.
The last 3 years they've taken in the first or second round offensive linemen. They are putting definitely, capital into getting their offensive line better. Mike Zimmer, I think, is one of the better defensively minded coaches. Last year, that team was devastated by injuries and COVID. I think they had like a top 10 most like COVID sit-outs, especially from starters. They lost both their middle linebackers. Now you're getting Daniil Hunter back. You're getting Eric Kendricks back. You're getting I can't remember the other middle linebacker, but their defense is coming back. They bring in Patrick Peterson, who I think still has a lot left in the tank. He's only 30.
Anthony Barr.
What?
Anthony Barr.
Anthony Barr. Yeah, thank you. And then Aaron Burr, duel. And then Harrison Smith is still like one of the best out there. You know what I mean? So I think the defense is taking a big step up. And if their offense is just the same, which I think they'll be a little bit better, I don't want to say how that doesn't translate to second place in that division. When you have the Bears who are stepping back, and I think the Packers and the Vikings might beat the Packers in Minnesota. So that's.
I mean, it's just we disagree.
Put it on the board.
We disagree, and that's fair. We do need to move on, but I didn't think we talked about this division as much. But look what happened.
I didn't
either. Alex coming out with these thoughts, and I have my own opinion about the Bears themselves. But it's going to be interesting. I do think, though, like I said, just to mention anybody wondering, the toughest schedule realistically in the NFL for divisions is the NFC North. So you have to look at that when you're predicting your playoff teams. The Bears and Vikings might not be able to they're going to play tougher teams. So they're not playing, there will be other divisions that just play easier teams. right? You look at the NFC East, like I mentioned, in the NFC South. So gonna be interesting. All right, we're gonna take a break from the NFL really quickly. We're gonna go to college football. Change gears completely. Very, very interesting college football weekend that has the rankings, at least in the bottom after the top 10, just all over the place after week one. And we know it's the AP and coaches poll, which can get a little ridiculous. But we had some upsets of some top ranked teams. We had, potentially one of the best college football games of the year, at least booked prior. The game itself didn't end up being like that, but a very interesting college football weekend. Jared, what was your takeaway from the first week of college football? It's the first week, realistically, that we have a legitimate fans back for all colleges as well since 2019. What was your takeaway from week one in college football?
I'll give you guys, Clemson, Georgia, one of those other games, or Alabama, Miami, or something like that. I was looking at Oklahoma, and I was looking at Spencer Rattler coming into this year as the Heisman favorite, right? And Oklahoma, with all they do is retool offensively, not only at quarterback, but at receiver, and have all these weapons. And I will say, they've never had a great defense, but this is still Oklahoma, right? They should still be getting 4- and 5-star recruits, and yet they only beat Tulane by 5.
Yeah,
5, and they're losing in the first
half.
half.
Jared Smith, I bet the -30 for the game. I thought it was going to be a blood. Maybe I took some points. Maybe I bought 3 points, but still.
I got
this
my
game
picks
was supposed
here.
to be
It's like a beautiful mind.
It's amazing. I love it.
I took Oklahoma -31.
See? Yeah. This game was supposed to be at Tulane if it wasn't for Hurricane Ida. Tulane would have beat Oklahoma if they were on their home turf. You only win by 5? I'm sorry, man. I can't trust Oklahoma anymore. You being a team, I'm sorry. This isn't LSU, right? There's basically one team in Louisiana that is worthy of being talked about, and it ain't Tulane, I can tell you that. So to me, I was just most surprised that Oklahoma came out so flat, and it was a shootout, and that they had to fight and claw to beat a Tulane team when they came into the season being ranked number 2.
Jared, I'll tell you this, that because some of it had to do with my bet. But I was really actually excited because we hadn't seen football with fans, with a legitimate sold out crowd since 2019. I mean, if you guys remember, even the Super Bowl only had about 25,000 people at it. So I was really excited just to get football back, right? I watched a little bit of the Ohio State Minnesota game on Thursday, but Saturday was really my day to sit down. I have Saturday mornings and afternoons off for the most part. So I was I'm going to be able to see a lot of these big time games. Right. And I was I want to see Oklahoma just steamroll. I want to see Spencer Rattler. And yeah, that was actually probably the most disappointing team of all of college football last week. Maybe it had to do with Tulane, having the hurricane and having to practice everywhere and just being a strong mental team. It looked like Oklahoma wasn't in the game at all, really. And I do think they'll probably pound whoever they play this week, realistically. But yeah, it was definitely disappointing, and it was kind of a theme a little bit of college football this week, where there was a lot of top teams that just didn't perform. And looking into week 2, week 3, you're I don't know if, I'll just say this, if anybody is anywhere close to Alabama at this point, rankings wise. I know Texas A&M had a good showing and stuff like that, but you're looking at it already, it's almost give the crown to Alabama after what they did to Miami, and with how bad Oklahoma looked, and realistically how average Georgia and Clemson looked with their kind of new look quarterbacks. Realistically, I know JT Daniels played last year a little bit, but it's first time full-time starting. It was a little bit of a disappointing college football weekend for me, and I think the best 2 teams looking after this weekend are UCLA and Alabama. Now, I'm not saying they're anywhere close to each other, but what UCLA did to LSU And what Alabama did to Miami was the most impressive things of the weekend. So that's where I look at it. And I think we can get more into the rankings and stuff like that after. But Alex, what was your thoughts on college football weekend?
I would say I have a very, not opposite, but like I wouldn't call it a disappointing weekend. I think it was like the expectations of the team, like it was a lot of upsets. I wouldn't say it was disappointing. I loved all the football. It felt like a conference championship week or like a bowl week with some of the matchups. Like seeing Clemson play Georgia week 1 was awesome. Seeing like these cross conference matchups to start the season was so much fun. Penn State playing Wisconsin was like so much, just punt. It was so much fun. Yeah. I haven't had that much fun watching college football. I don't think, honestly, ever. Like, I've never been a big college football guy. I was sitting down. I was hooked on all of these games the whole time. I loved it. But talking about like, in that Spencer Rattler vein of, y'all thought this guy was going to be the number 1 overall pick. What about Sam Howell losing with UNC, to, I don't remember who they played, to be honest.
It was Virginia Tech.
Virginia Tech.
And I'm just like, yo, you're supposed to be the deep ball hero, and you guys just lost by 10. Like I thought was like, yikes, in terms of disappointing, or like, ooh, you got some work to do the rest of the, season to make yourself look good again. So we'll see about that. That was my biggest takeaway.
One of Howell's interceptions, he was on the verge of being sacked, getting spun around. He did like a 360, and as he's spinning around to then again like face his receivers, instead of him just going down, like take the sack, take the loss, like plays over, he flails the ball in the air, like not even looking where he's throwing it. Just like, I'm going to like heave it up as if he was like 5 yards from the end zone and it was the last play and he had to throw the ball up. And it was just, it's like, dude, like it's okay. Like it's not okay to take a sack, but in this sense, it is okay, because what he did was he just turned a bad play into a worse play. And I think that's alarming in a sense of, dude, you're not Superman. Like you're not going to make every single play, right? Yes, you have the scrambling ability, but when a defensive lineman or when a defender gets their hands on you and you're twirling, the best play is then not to throw the ball. You don't know where you're throwing it. And when I saw that, I just immediately went, wow.
See, and this is why I didn't push back earlier, but I should have pushed back in your analysis about like when players are coming into the league, the quarterbacks, and they're so much smarter and more advanced plays, and like the game is slower for them than it was in previous generations. I disagree, because you have players like Spencer Rattler who thinks he's playing backyard football, and I think he held the ball for like over 8 seconds 4 different times on that game. You know what I mean? You have Sam Howell who's trying to do the hero ball and scramble, and then if we want to look at Justin Fields, he had the longest holding the ball average of all the quarterbacks who got drafted last year. It's like he's a scramble around and trying to hero ball, which we get it. Russell Wilson does it and it works. Aaron Rodgers does it and it works. Not every time. Russell Wilson's also one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the league. But like, that's where I think they're not coming in ready. You know what I mean? They're not getting the ball out quick. They're not making their first reads. They want to let their athletes, get it.
And I think athletes that are coming up in today are the most prepared that we've seen. Athletes 20, 30, 40 years ago weren't playing, or maybe they were playing at 5, but it wasn't as competitive coming up through the Pop Warner high school collegiate ranks as it is today. So I think that athletes are more prepared for what the NFL has to offer. But I do agree, no one is ever 100% ready. There's always going to be something you're going to have to work on. It's just, like I said, the mentals of, okay, when a bad situation comes, am I going to just say, all right, live to play another down, or am I going to make it worse?
Yeah.
And the instances that we've seen so far, Justin Fields, yes, he's taken sacks. He took that one crazy sack in the preseason where his helmet came off, right? It's like, he didn't just chuck the ball up and say, oh, I'm going to try to make a hero play, right? He took the sack. And that's where I'm saying these guys just need to be smarter with, it's okay to have a bad play. Live to fight another day. Punt the ball. Like I said earlier, as an offense, you end the ball with the kicker touching the ball. Extra point, field goal, punt. One of those 3.
Let me say this to clarify my point, Alex, about what I said about being disappointed. I think it's because you want every year to see a lot of parity between the top teams. because we don't want to see Alabama and Ohio State and Clemson always be in that Final Four. And yes, it's fun. We're NFL fans. We like watching the top talent play each other. But, like, come on. You know, like, I'd love to see Alabama lose 2 games. Clemson might lose 2 games this year, which is great, right? But, you know, I just think when you look at, like, the top 10, or I'll go top 12 because I could do it with the top 12. Alabama steamrolled over everybody, over Miami, and that was like one of the biggest blowouts the whole weekend. It's crazy. Miami may be overrated, but whatever. Oklahoma, we know what they did. Super disappointing. Clemson, 3 points. Super disappointing performance against a good team, but still super disappointing. Ohio State, they had a good performance. I kind of forgot about what they did with Minnesota, and I'll give them, you know, the top spot there. Georgia, although they won, a bit disappointing. Doesn't look like a team that can be like the national champion at this point. Maybe they can get better. Texas A&M only scored 10 points against Kent State in the first half. Okay, I know they did better later, but disappointing. Iowa State beat Northern Iowa, Division II team. This is the number 7 ranked team by 16-10. Cincinnati blowout, but they played Miami of Ohio. Doesn't really count. Notre Dame, you know, gave up a huge lead to Florida State. It was a great game, but like Notre Dame's still a bit disappointing in the end. North Carolina lost, and Oregon barely beat Fresno State. And they play Ohio State, and so they'll probably lose that game. And then when you look at Wisconsin, right, and they were number 12, very disappointing performance. Fun game to watch, Alex. I agreed, fun game to watch, but very disappointing, and they don't look anywhere near a top 10 team.
No.
And neither really does realistically who they played Penn State either. I think they just, you look at what with all that happened, it was, you had to give, you know. So that's what I'm saying. You look at, and like, who's going to compete against Alabama? Probably, you know, Ohio State. Maybe like it's like one of those teams where like we already see a top team, and it's like, yeah, there's parity, and maybe if like somehow if Florida is able to beat them during the regular season, they jump up there, or UCLA goes on some giant run and beats everybody, and you know, because they're it's like, you know, Iowa looked impressive, but like again, it's the Big Ten. Like, how impressive are really these teams? Michigan looked impressive, but they weren't ranked. So, you know, that's what I meant about college football as a whole being a bit disappointing in the top team ranks.
Right. And I'll say this kind of just to end my segment on this is I was super excited and very happy that, you know, all these top programs first week of the season are playing competitive teams, because I'm looking at the week 2 schedule, which is normally the week 1 schedule. Right.
Yeah.
And we get it. We got like Ohio State and Oregon. That's a good matchup. Right. Auburn's playing Alabama State. Florida's playing South Florida. Virginia Tech playing Middle Tennessee. Notre Dame's playing Toledo. Georgia's playing UAB, right? It's like Cincinnati's playing Murray State. Penn State's playing Ball State. Alabama's playing Mercer. Like, you know what I mean?
Come on, man.
I'm sorry, but these games should not be allowed. I really, these games really should not count. Alabama against Mercer. Alabama's just whooping Miami. Okay, what do you think they're going to do against Mercer? If Mercer,
there's not even a line on the game for like to bet on it. They're just like, we don't know how many points Alabama can score in 60 minutes. Like,
if Mercer comes out of this game with less than like 10 concussions and like 3 or 4 injuries, I think that's a win for them.
Yeah,
that's about all I can say about that. So basically, to sum it up, it was nice and refreshing to see those week 1 games like actually count, going up against a legitimate opponent in most scenarios. To whereas in this week 2, it's like, all right, guys, it's kind of like a bye week. We'll see you in week 3. You know what I mean? I can't stand these cupcake weeks where you're trying to just rev the team up and just get an extra win on your scoreboard. For all the other teams that I mentioned, the Mercers, the Ball States, the Murray States, great for them because they're all getting money to basically come and get their asses kicked. You know, they're getting a couple $100,000 for their school to go and get their ass kicked, which is cool. But from a competitive, you know, fan standpoint, ain't nobody want to see that.
Here's the thing. You forgot to I think you might have mentioned this, but Clemson's playing South Carolina State. That's D2.
Nope, forgot that one.
That's D2. That's D2. No, I definitely not the best college football weekend. I will say this though. I'm going to call this, okay? These are my two things I'm going to say about this weekend. Colorado is playing Texas A&M at home. It's in the Denver Broncos Stadium. Texas A&M, that's altitude. I think Colorado covers that minus 17 in this game. So or the plus 17. I don't think they win, but Colorado, I think, will give them a pretty solid game. And then the other game, where'd it go? Because my page just went up for no reason on me real quick. Hold on. And then I got Arkansas upset in Texas at home.
Wow.
Texas, they played a ranked team in Louisiana Lafayette, who actually looks like the best Louisiana team after this weekend. But they beat them by 20. It wasn't the most fascinating game to watch, but I don't think Texas they're still not for real. They don't have as good of a quarterback as they did last year. And I think their coach, the guy that was at Nebraska, is a complete fraud as the top head coach. I don't think he's very good. I think he was, Tom Herman's his name or whatever. Was it Nebraska he was at or somewhere else? I can't remember. Houston? It doesn't matter. Those are gonna be my two. I'm gonna call those not upsets, but one upset and then one close game for Texas A&M, and then Iowa State, number 9 versus number 10. Be interesting game to watch. I don't think it'll be a national championship eliminator. Realistically, that's what that game will be. Early on, there was one more game.
I like that. I will be watching that Arkansas game. My girlfriend went to Arkansas from Arkansas.
There you go.
So we'll be rooting for the Hogs.
Go Hogs.
Go Hogs.
I'm going to be watching the South Florida game because right now Florida is in the middle of a little bit of a QB, not kind of competition.
I agree.
Emory Jones is the guy who can throw the ball a little bit better. I can't remember the other guy's name, but he's built more like Cam Newton and has a big arm. And I think they want to find out who they're going to start against Alabama next week. Because it's Florida-Alabama week 3. So I think it'll be fun to watch that game just for the QB competition. I think they're going to be kind of trading off series and seeing which one makes the offense go, which one do they think they can, can they trust the bigger quarterback's arm, that kind of thing. So also my girl went to University of Florida, so I'll be watching. I'll be on TV.
That game's on ABC. Wow, ABC got Florida and stuff. Good for South Florida. Yeah.
Also, these games always seem to be interesting. USC Stanford is always an interesting game. That'd be a night game at USC. The night games at USC are always fun to watch. But yeah, top game this next week. Don't get us wrong. Ohio State, Oregon. That's a legitimate top game. It's at 9 a.m. in the morning on Fox. Sure, you'll have Joe Klatt and Gus Johnson on that one.
Yeah.
Going at it. All right, let's move to let's get back to the NFL now, guys. Based on time, we will not be able to get to the week 1 predictions. We're going to put those on social media as well. So we're going to finish off this podcast doing the AFC. Jared, I believe we left off with you. So we'll just go AFC West. We'll go right to you, Alex. We'll give you your division because we don't have an AFC division, so it doesn't matter to us. AFC West. Let's get back into the NFL. What do you think happens in that division? And be as biased as possible if you want.
Yeah. I plan on it. The Chiefs are winning the division. I get it.
Thank God.
I'm not happy about it. I ain't happy about it. I think they're kind of like the Rams in the essence of they are extremely talented top layer, not a lot of depth. They don't really even have a number 2 receiver. I know, Jared, you're a Mecole Hardman truther, but
shut your mouth right now.
He doesn't. He's like Eric Stokes. He's fast as hell, but he can't catch the ball. Can't catch the ball, Jared.
You know what? No. Continue, because I don't want to. I'm going to let you go first. No.
But yeah,
have you not seen all the preseason tape, all of his practice? Go check him out.
He's awesome. He's like Henry Ruggs.
Thank you. Jesus.
Spot the lie. I think if they have one or 2 key injuries, if Travis Kelce goes down, that's huge. It's one of those things where if everything goes right, they're healthy through the year, they're going to win 14, 15 games. Whatever their over-under is for wins on the season, I'm taking the over. I hate them, whatever. Next, I got the Broncos, number 2 in the division. I got them going to the wild card. Their defense will be top 3. It is absolutely nasty what this defense is doing. Preseason, I know it's preseason, but they didn't give up a touchdown. That's pretty cool. The amount of depth they have at corner and defensive line is hilarious. They have one of the top 5 safeties. Bradley Chubb I'm gushing here. I'm so excited for that defense. I'm really worried about the offense.
Yeah, that's exactly.
I'm really worried about the offense. Yeah. I think it'll function because it's going to be Teddy Bridgewater not turning the ball over. And if you can just, like Jared says, end the series or the drive with the kicker kicking it in some fashion, I think this is a successful team. I think we'll see the Broncos defense being one of the highest scoring defenses in the league. I think you'll see Noah Fant go off this year. And I think we're going to get back to a Denver Bronco running game with Javonte Williams taking over the lead back role come week 3, week 4. I think Bubba Gordon's going to fumble the ball. He's not effective in short yardage. I think Javonte Williams is the next guy. There's been a lot of big comparisons made to him, from him to Alvin Kamara, and making comparisons to Aaron Jones with what he does with the ball in space. So that excites me. I'm really excited. Still got Cortland Sutton's coming back. He's a big possession receiver. Jerry Jeudy's second year in the offense. I think it's going to be a fun team to watch. And I think that defense, it's been one of those years where I'm more excited to watch the Broncos defense on the field than I am for their offense. Like, I'm going to be like, this is where we, attack the other team, is with our defense. Third, I got the Chargers. They're going to be I think they're going to be a roller coaster of a team. I think they're going to score a lot of points, but I think they're going to give up a lot of points. Their defense is still really good, but I feel like it's been this good for the last 3 or 4 years. I've been told that it's been this good for the last 3 or 4 years, and they still get steamrolled. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if it's the coaching. I don't know if it's just players not playing up to their potential. I just don't ever see the Chargers winning the division or taking that next step. Herbert is exciting, though. Their offense will be a problem. Yikes. And then the Raiders are kind of last place just because their drafting sucks. Like, the way they construct that roster is garbage. They got Derek Carr, who is I think a franchise quarterback, but they just don't do anything for him. That, they lose Rodney Hudson to your team, so they lost one of the top centers. They have Henry Ruggs as their number 1 receiver. Brian Edwards is supposed to be, the next Calvin Johnson. Okay. Darren Waller's great. That's the only real offensive weapon I'm worried about, is Darren Waller. But that's why the Broncos got Patrick Surtain to be the tight end whisperer. So we'll see.
I like Josh Jacobs.
He is good. Yeah. He's good. Yeah. He's not going to – I don't think he'll win or lose the game for them, but he is an important piece. Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
So that's my order. Chiefs, Broncos, Chargers, Raiders. I think that's probably chalk of what most people are predicting. But yeah, I think the Broncos win 1 game against the Chiefs, though. That's my hot take. I think we sneak out a win in Mile High. We're the only team that kept the Chiefs under 24 points twice last year.
We saw Patrick Mahomes running for his life in the Super Bowl, and I think he went to the front office and said, "Y'all do something about this. Like, yeah, you just gave me $500 million, but protect me up front." And so I'll be very curious to see how well this offensive line can do and hold up against this team, because, the one thing about this team is they're so great with motion and they have all the weapons on the outside, but some of their plays are longer developing. Like, Patrick Mahomes will do a play action to the running back and then fake screen to Tyreek Hill and then try to hit Travis Kelce over the middle. Like, that is a longer developing play. It's not a 1 to 2 second play. That's a 4 to 5 second play. So I'll be curious to see what that offensive line does. And I think for the defense, they just have to be average. Kind of like I was saying about Dallas. I'm not trying to compare teams to teams, because obviously I know Kansas City is way better. But the Chiefs defense just needs to give up around 19, 20 points, and they're going to be just fine. They don't need to be this stout Denver Broncos defense that gives up 10 points a game, right? You know what I mean? Like, they don't have to be great. They just need to bend but not break, which is kind of what they've done the last couple of years under Steve Spagnuolo. Get a couple turnovers here and there, and I think this Chiefs team will be just fine. Really, to me, the fun story with this division is 2 and 3. I agree with you. I think the Raiders will end up 4th because they have the least amount of talent, and I feel bad for Derek Carr because of what that organization has done to him and just not putting enough pieces around him. But 2 and 3, I was going back and forth between the Chargers and the Broncos. I wanted to initially say the Broncos because, Alex, you are 1,000% right. That defense is freaking nasty. Like, next to the Washington football team, there's probably not another defense in the NFL that I'm most scared to play, right? Offensively is where I have reservations because of Teddy Bridgewater. And I get why they did it, right? You would rather, I think, have the just check it down, right? Play more conservative. Don't turn the ball over. Don't lose the game for us mentality, as opposed to Drew Lock, who's the gunslinger, who wants to take chances. That would be more fun as a fan to see. But I think from a winning standpoint, Denver is saying we're going to lean on our defense. We're going to lean on our run game. We're going to be boring, but it gives us a better chance to win.
Yeah.
I think I have to put the Chargers at number 2 because I think they're just a little more balanced. Like, I think they have a good defense. Yes, Denver's defense is better than the Chargers, but they have Joey Bosa. They lost Ingram, right? But I think they have good, solid defensive line play to go along with Bosa. Their linebacking core is very good. And then in their secondary, they do get Derwin James back, which is, I mean, he's one of the best safeties in the league. We just haven't seen him because, unfortunately, he's been injured for the last year and a half. And then offensively, I think that's where the Chargers take that slight edge over Denver because that offense is prolific, right? They retooled the offensive line. They got Rashawn Slater in the draft. They signed, I believe it was Corey Lindsey from the Packers, if I'm not mistaken. Right. So like that offensive line has gotten a lot better. Obviously, Justin Herbert is a great quarterback, and then the weapons that he has at receiver and running back. So I was really going back and forth because I do like Denver. If Denver had Drew Lock, I think their explosive ability would be there a little more. And I think even though they might turn the ball over more and he's going to take more chances, I think they would just be able to score more points. And even though they're going to be in every game, I can't guarantee that Denver is going to win 10, 11, 12 games because I just don't know if they can score enough points. The Chargers, I think we know they can score enough points, and I think their defense is good enough to still keep, stay within that 20 to 22 range to always keep them in games. So slight edge for the Chargers and then the Broncos. But I can't really argue with you that the Broncos could be number 2.
Yeah. So obviously Chiefs first place. I don't need to talk about that really at all. We know the offensive line may be a little bit worse, but like that's more talk about playoffs, right? Like we don't need to even talk about them in the regular season. I agree that the Raiders are last place. When you have 3 quarterbacks on your roster, none of them very good. When you have more tight ends than running backs, okay, and when you have literally the worst wide receiving core maybe I've ever seen, you're just not a very good team, right? And you mentioned the drafting. We traded Rodney Hudson for a 3rd-round pick, meaning my Cardinals. That 3rd-round pick, there was 2 3rd-round picks in a row they got, but the one they picked with our pick was Malcolm Kuntz, who's the defensive end. They already had Carl Nassib, Yannick Ngakoue, Cleveland Farrell, and Max Crosby. So I don't know why you needed to pick that guy. And with their other 3rd-round pick, they picked Divine Diablo, and they already had Corey Littleton, and they just signed KJ Wright. So I don't understand where that's coming from either. This team's a joke, and it may be the last year for John Gruden and Mike Mayock and Derek Carr combined.
They got 5 years left on that contract.
I don't care. You got to get it's the last year for Mayock. Mayock might be one of the worst GMs I've ever seen.
Yes. Mayock will be back on NFL Network doing scouting combine and all that stuff.
Network wants it back. They're going to be like, what the hell was that? Everything you said on TV didn't make sense, I guess, then too. Right? I'll have to go back and see if he was correct about his stuff on TV too. Raiders last place, though. I agree with that. The interesting thing, that I think the Chargers and Broncos are so interestingly, matched. It's just two completely different teams, right? You have one team that has a really good defense in the Broncos versus a team in the Chargers. The defense is like kind of average, right? You don't know what they're going to do, and a couple of injuries, and they're screwed. Offensively, I don't think you could argue that the Chargers have better offense, right? But more efficient might be the Broncos. I'm going to put the Broncos at 2nd place. Broncos have a pretty easy schedule this year too, compared to the rest of the teams in the AFC West too. The Raiders actually have the 8th hardest schedule somehow in NFL too. That's another reason why. So I'll give the Broncos. This might be a division, though, and this is our first division, and I tend to pick the playoff teams based off my own predictions, but this might be a division where you only have Chiefs, right? The Broncos and Chargers might get picked off too many times to make the playoffs, and with how crazy the AFC was last year, I cannot confidently predict that the Broncos are going to make the playoffs, even though I'm saying they're second place. I can't confidently say it. And so they do have an easy schedule, which helps. And so if I had to pick, I'll have to see who else I pick for the rest of these divisions. But, I got the Chiefs making the playoffs as the only confident pick for playoffs in the AFC West. All right, I will go to the AFC North. Going to pick it right off the bat there because I want this one. I want to talk about this one. This is a very interesting division with all four teams, even though one team I think we all think is probably not going to make the playoffs. But I'll start with that one. The Bengals improved. Man, they are not going to be a one of those teams that I do think is fighting for the top number one spot. I do think they're a team that's going to get some quality wins this year. Do I think they have any chance of playoffs? No, but it's going to be fun to watch Joe Burrow. That offensive line has improved. One of the reasons it would be fun to watch Joe Burrow. And overall, they were one of those teams in free agency that just decided to pick up a lot of players, right? I think they're, 5, 4, 6 win team, maybe 7 if they really are a talented team, but nowhere near playoffs. And they do have a very, very difficult division. This is the division, guys, that is the toughest in the NFL. Okay, Steelers, number 1 hardest record. Coming in this year, Ravens number 2, Bengals number 6, and the Browns number 9. So there you go, right there. Very difficult. Maybe not harder than the NFC North, but the AFC North is very difficult as well. So that's where the Bengals might not get there. You got the Steelers who have, it's almost like it's Big Ben or bust, kind of like you saw last year with Big Ben. They were good. I mean, actually, they were unbelievable. They didn't lose a game. And then they lost every game. Like they lost every single game and then got slaughtered in the playoffs. The Steelers were the biggest fraud last year. They weren't a playoff team. They got lucky in the beginning of the season, took advantage of a couple teams and won. But this team I still see there is kind of like that average middle of the road team. So I got them third in this division. Then you got the Ravens and Broncos. Okay, these
Browns.
are two
Browns.
legit. Who did I say?
Broncos.
Okay, the Browns and Ravens, two legitimate Super Bowl contenders, legit, both of them. And that is very, very hard to pick who's going to win this division. I'll go over the. Well, maybe you'll agree. I'll pick a team. Don't worry. The Ravens, you know what you're getting from them. You're getting a lot of running. They're losing guys running though, left and right. They lost Justice Hill. They lost J.K. Dobbins, and it sucks because I really wanted to see J.K. Dobbins take that next step, but we're not going to see that this year. We might see Le'Veon Bell somehow with this team, which is crazy. But you got Lamar Jackson. You got the running game. You got a good offensive line. You got a great defense, right? You have Rashad Bateman at wide receiver now added to the core. This team got. It's hard to say they got better because the running game got depleted because of injury, and that sucks. But this team is it's one of the top teams in the AFC, and with that defense and with Lamar Jackson, if he can just improve passing a little bit more this year, they're a contender. But that's why I got the Browns in first place. I got the Browns as the top team in this division. Unbelievable offensive line, unbelievable defense, the offensive weapons, the running game. It's incredible. The only thing that's like a little bit sketchy on this team, we all know who it is Baker Mayfield, right? Great year last year, but it's going to become to those big moments, right, this season. It's the only thing that's going to hold back the Browns from being a Super Bowl team. It's the only thing. With the offensive line and the running game and the defense and the wide receiving weapons, you just got to have a guy to give the ball to those guys and a guy to pass the ball to those guys, right? The defense will do their job. Offensive line will do their job. And so I have them in first place, but Baker Mayfield could easily have them in second with performances against the Steelers, with performances against the Ravens, with performances against the top teams in the AFC and NFC that they play this year. I got the Browns in first place. I see them easily being an 11, 12 win team. But it's going to be interesting. But I got Browns Ravens, Steelers, and Bengals. I'm pretty confident about that. I'm pretty confident.
Go ahead, Alex.
I agree with the order completely.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the Steelers are frauds. I think Big Ben's going the way of Drew Brees, where his arm is now limiting the offense, and it sucks because they have, I think, a pretty decent wide receiver room there that you could be exciting with an offense there. But yeah, and also they don't have. I don't trust Najee Harris. I don't know why. I just don't trust him behind that offensive line. So I don't think their running game's going to be anything. Yeah. So their defense is, I think, just as good as it was last year. They're going to be a nasty defense. That's what's going to keep them in games. But I think you will see the Bengals steal a game or two from the Steelers. I wouldn't be surprised if they flip. I still think the Bengals will be worse, but I think the potentially Bengals could be third. Who knows? We'll see. Ravens, like you said, they're gutted to start the season. Even Rashad Bateman's going to be, I think he's out for a month or 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So it's rough. I don't even know who they're throwing the ball to, because I think Marquise Brown's out, and I think Sammy Watkins is hurt or is like nagging injury.
I think they're going to play this weekend, but everybody's nagging. Mark Andrews is really the only healthy guy besides that.
Start him.
At that.
But yeah, so it's going to be interesting how they play, but they might have one of the deepest defensive rosters. So that'll keep them in games. They're going to be a great like low scoring win games. They're going to be like the 19-16 type winning games. Start Justin Tucker. The Browns are so exciting to watch. I can't wait to watch Browns games. And this is my little hot take, I think at the end of the season, Baker Mayfield will have at least one MVP vote because of how he does. Because it's going to be so easy for him. I think it's going to be it's going to be like the Cam Newton when he won the MVP type read. It's like your first read, second read, run it, or dump it to Kareem Hunt. It's going to be super simple reads. He's never going to be too pressured with that offensive line. And then if that doesn't happen for some reason, let's say he stinks it up, I think you got to get rid of him because he's the next one to get paid. So I don't think they'll pay him. So I think it's a contract year. All the pieces are that. Their defense got even better. I'm excited to watch JOK. That's going to be a fun linebacker to watch. I think he has the potential to do like a Josh Allen kind of elevate his game in terms of like the stats. Not the same way Josh Allen does it, but like he might have like 30 plus touchdowns and less than 10 interceptions. That's my take, is that Mayfield will have an MVP vote before Russell Wilson does.
I don't have much to say. I agree with everything that you guys said. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, I don't have like necessarily a hot take or, oh no, I'm putting Steelers at number one. No, the Cleveland Browns are the most talented team, clearly. And they will win this division because offensively and defensively, top to bottom, they not only have great players as their number ones, but they also have depth. Like the players that they brought in defensively, right? Obviously, they have Myles Garrett anchoring that left defensive end, and now you bring in Jadeveon Clowney. Now, he hasn't been able to stay healthy for most of his career, but on paper, that's a nasty defensive line, right? Yeah. And then you mentioned JOK, who they drafted out of Notre Dame, that kind of hybrid do-it-all linebacker. Denzel Ward. They drafted, I believe it was Greg Newsome out of Northwestern, who's a very good corner. They brought in John Johnson, the safety from the Rams, to come over. And then Grant Duplett, who was the Thorpe winner for LSU 2 years ago, is back and healthy this year after missing all of last year. So, yes, this Cleveland Browns team is the most talented. The Ravens, I think simply because of their depleted running game, I put them, and their injuries already before the season starts, I think we have to put them at number 2. But Lamar Jackson is still lethal, and that defense is still very good. The Pittsburgh Steelers, I do not trust at all. I would prefer them, and I would give them a better chance without Big Ben. The fact that Big Ben is playing, I think, simply does hurt them. And they're going to be in games because I think the defense will keep them there. But offensively, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, Alex. Kind of like Drew Brees. I don't think Big Ben can throw the ball 30 yards. They're going to be doing a lot of crossing routes, a lot of screens, a lot of short to intermediate things. I don't think they're going to be able to stretch the field. And if you're a defense and you know that you don't have to worry about the long ball, you're going to put guys. You're going to pressure. You're going to play press. You're going to put more guys in the box. You're going to say, hey, big men, I dare you to chuck the ball 40, 50 yards down the field to Juju Smith-Schuster. It's just not going to happen. So I've got them at number 3. And the Bengals, I do like, right? I hope Joe Burrow stays healthy. I really do like him. It's a nice receiving corps with if Jamar Chase can live up to the hype, which so far in preseason, not so much, had some drops, but I think he's still getting himself acclimated. He he chose to sit out all of last year. So he's, I think still getting his feet wet, kind of his feet underneath him again. And then Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins, that's a really good trio of receivers. Plus Joe Mixon, I think they're trying to fix their offensive line. Even though in the draft, I think they should have went Penei Sewell over Chase. I think the fact that Burrow played with Chase at LSU was a big factor there. But in my opinion, when you look at that scar that Burrow will have on his knee for the rest of his life, I think that would have been an easy decision for me to say we're going offensive line right there. So yeah, the Bengals will bring up this division at number 4, but they're not going to be like the Bengals of old where they're shooting for the number 1 overall pick. They will be a 5, maybe 6 win team. And I think they'll get some surprises in there. And I think they're going to be more competitive than what some people think. But yeah, other than that, I mean, I think we agree.
Apparently, Jamar Chase has the yips right now. He's having just dropping balls left and right, missing screen passes. And they're waiting 2 weeks just to be like, is this guy actually going to perform, or is it just going to be T. Higgins? Did we make a massive mistake not picking Penei Sewell? So I'm glad you brought that up. Alex, you were going to say something real quick?
I was going to say, to kind of do a cross conference or cross division comparison. I agree. We're putting the Bengals. We're all putting them in the 4th. Yeah. But I would put them 3rd in the NFC East. I would put them above the Giants and the Eagles. You know what I mean? Where they are in terms of getting better, they're better than some
That's
of
a good point.
Their second place teams in the other divisions. So I like the Eagles.
It's probably the second best division outside of the NFC West, realistically. Yeah. And realistically, the most talented team, or the least talented team, I won't even say that. I won't say that. I think there's a chance the Bengals have a better record than the Steelers. That's there's a legit chance that can happen.
I'm not. Yeah.
No, so, and that's more of an indictment on the Steelers, not on the Bengals. But all right. So this next division, we'll just we only have one of us guys to pick a division, so that will be the AFC East. We'll finish with that. AFC South. Does that okay? I'll ask you guys questions. You guys can each just answer this and just give me a simple answer. If Deshaun Watson ends up playing somehow early on in the season, do the Texans have any chance in the playoffs?
No.
Okay.
It is such a bad roster.
Yeah, I agree too. I just wanted to ask, that'd be a topic.
Just give them the number 1 pick. Right?
Yeah.
They're already selling off their team. They just traded Bradley Roby away. And they're bringing in Danny Amendola. That's the white flag. We're not doing this this year. Danny, come on in. Let's get you another contract.
I am so glad the Cardinals play the Texans this year. I'm just telling that right now. We got that. And does anybody think that the Jaguars are with Trevor Lawrence? Does anybody think of them similarly to the Bengals, or do we think they're just going to be a bad NFL team?
I think they're going to be like the Bengals last year, where it's let's see what he can do. Can he just do what we want him to do? Can he somewhat protect the ball? I mean, he has some interceptions, but he's reading the team. He has give us flashes. That's all we need. They're really they're looking for the 3rd overall pick, I think, and they're going to take Kayvon Thibodeau from Oregon, or they're going to take Nick Bonito from Texas A&M. They need to start rebuilding that defense immediately. Yeah.
I think. All right, so that's what I'm saying. So we don't really need to go over those teams because we believe they'll just
hand the Titans the division. I mean,
Okay, so Jerry, I'll let you go first. You say division, they're the division winners. Why is that? Why do the Colts have no chance?
You trust Carson Wentz? You seen him last couple of years? And he's just coming off another injury. I do. I don't.
There's no threat of re-injury though with that.
I think he's missed practice time, valuable practice time that he could have gotten. Right, he's just now coming back. I will say I think the Colts have a good defense, solid defense that can keep them in games. They have one of the best offensive lines, so I'll give them that. Something that Carson Wentz has not been used to. And they have a good running game. I simply do not trust Carson Wentz at all. Like, I think the Tennessee Titans are more complete as a team, at least offensively. I don't see Carson Wentz leading this Colts team. I think he is still too much in his head. And I think it's more coming out of the gate. I think the first month of the year, the first 4 or 5 games, I think they're going to struggle and kind of put themselves in a little bit of a hole. And then they might start to get some steam going. But that first month, I think will be too much for them to overcome. I think next year, if Carson Wentz has a good solid year this year, and it's kind of all right, I can still play, I've still got it in me, and they can keep getting better. I think next year we can really look at the Colts as okay, this team could be a playoff contender. So I think they're heading in the right direction. I just don't think that they really have any chance this year of matching Tennessee.
The Cardinals play the Titans week 1. I'm so excited. We're going to be able to score points. So it's almost like, can our defense just stack the box and stop Derrick Henry and we'll win? It's just, I think when you have a team with that bad of a defense and you look at the Colts, and if Carson Wentz just plays well, they can just win the division, right? It can be one of those things. So I don't know. I think there's a lot more competition if everybody stays healthy with the Colts, that the Colts could win this division, and specifically Carson Wentz. If Carson Wentz doesn't stay healthy, yeah, the Titans win it easily, and they're going to be 8-8 and win the division, or 9-8, 8-9, whatever. But I just think this division is kind of a joke, and we probably shouldn't spend a lot of time on it because this will be.
We've already spent too much time.
Yeah, this will be a 1 playoff team. So I'll say this: Alex's Broncos are looking more solid to make the playoffs here. In my little prediction, I only have 5 playoff teams so far legitimately making. I didn't put the Steelers in. And I'm not putting the one of the Colts or Titans isn't making it either. So, I do think that the Colts have a chance to make the playoffs only because of how bad this division is. And because of the offensive line and defense, you always have a chance if you have those 2 things. So I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
And Xavier Rhodes, is he still playing for them this year? The Colts?
No, I think so.
He's
No,
not?
he got moved to. Damn.
That's what I thought.
Is he on the Cowboys?
No.
Man, I can't remember who he went. He went somewhere. But yeah.
Doesn't matter that much. But that defense, you got Darius Leonard, you got some beasts on that defense. It's gonna be it's not gonna be interesting, but maybe at the end of the season. What's up? Go ahead.
Xavier Rhodes still plays for the Colts.
Yeah, he's still there. It's Malik Hooker who moved.
Yeah. Well, Xavier Rhodes,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he went to the Cowboys. Someone went to the Cowboys from the Colts. Yeah.
Xavier Rhodes had a better year with the Colts than he did with the Vikings a year. So he improved a bit, not the best, but defense can be pretty good. You never know. I just think when you have the worst defense, I guess the Seahawks made the playoffs last year, but they didn't seem competitive in the playoffs once they got there. It was going to be tough. So you never know. Titans probably will win the division, but I see the Cardinals going 4-0 in that division this year. We play the AFC South. Yeah, maybe you're looking at maybe the NFC West going 16-0. I think the Seahawks are going to ruin that with their horrible defense against Derrick Henry and the Titans.
Derrick Henry's got 300 yards on him.
Yeah, I wonder if that's happened ever, that you have a 16-0 division. Probably not, but there'll be. What I'm saying is they play. Not only is the division bad, but they play the NFC West, so that every team plays the Cardinals, Seahawks, Rams, and 49ers. It's just brutal.
Yeah.
Absolutely brutal.
Yeah.
All right, Jared, your last one, AFC East, very interesting division. Get it started.
Yeah, no, it is. And I think we can all agree here that this is Buffalo's division, right? They made it to the AFC Championship game last year. Very close. We saw, it's kind of not iconic, but it's a very well-known picture now of Stephon Diggs being the last Buffalo Bills player to leave the field as the Chiefs were celebrating the AFC Championship. Yeah. And basically, keeping that in the back of his head is so. I think Buffalo is on a mission this year. I think for the last couple of years they have continued to excel and get better and better. And it's kind of, I don't want to say Super Bowl or bust necessarily, because it's not like they're gonna break this team up or Josh Allen's leaving or anything. He just got paid. But I think this is a Super Bowl year for the Buffalo Bills. If I had to pick right now, and I'm not trying to get ahead of myself, an AFC Championship game this year, it should be Chiefs Bills. In my opinion, right? So the weapons that they do have on offense and defense combined, I think they have one of the more complete teams, and I think they have a very good coaching staff in Sean McDermott. So don't need to spend too much time on the Bills, in my opinion. I think they just continue to roll. It does get a little interesting with the 2 and 3. I think the Jets are going to come in last. I like Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson will flash, and I think he will kind of elevate this Jets team from the dumps. I don't think they will win many games, but I think he will show promise. And this is like a 2, 3, 4 year project down the road that if they continue to draft well, put pieces and offensive line weapons around Wilson, that I think they can succeed. But there's just no way rookie head coach, rookie quarterback, so many young pieces. Like, I think the Jets, this is off the top of my head, but I guarantee if I look it up in a minute, the Jets are probably one of the youngest teams in all of the NFL.
Just real quick, with the Jets, like, corners, they have no corner on their team that is, 1, out of their rookie contract, and 2, drafted above the 3rd round. Their corner situation is real rough. Like, yeah. I think Bryce Hall is their number 1 corner right now.
He is out of Virginia. I remember him because I wanted to take him in one of our fantasy leagues. Their cornerback spot might be worse than the Cardinals.
Yeah.
And that's it's not. It's not.
Yeah. But no, like I said, I like Zach Wilson, and I think he's going to show flashes. They are just not in any way, shape, or form ready to compete in that division or in the AFC as a whole. 2 and 3, the Patriots and the Dolphins, vice versa. That's where it does get a little interesting, because I think last year the Dolphins surprised some people, right? They kind of came along, and even though Tua did not have a great year, I think that defense played a lot better than many expected. I remember the game against the Rams where they forced like 4 turnovers, albeit against Jared Goff, but still the Rams came into that game as like a 8-9 point favorite, and the Dolphins came in and smacked them, right? And they just kind of played very tough. So I think the Dolphins will be in a lot of games. They're going to play very tough defense under Brian Flores. They draft Jalen Waddle with their 1st overall pick. He reunites with Tua. They still have Devontae Parker. They have Mike Gesicki. So they have some nice pieces. What's their offensive line going to be look like? And is Tua going to take that next step? I'm not so sure, which is why I'm putting them in number 3 spot. And I'm putting New England at number 2 with a chance to be that wild card team. Obviously, when Bill Belichick is your coach, you're always going to have a chance. And what we've seen from Mac Jones after he solidified taking over that number 1 quarterback job from Cam Newton, who is now cut, surprisingly, if Bill Belichick has all the faith in the world in Mac Jones, then I don't know why we shouldn't. I think he has proven enough to be the starter. They also spent the most money. Was it a record for how much guaranteed money the Patriots spent in the offseason? It was like $150 million in guaranteed money, and bringing in offensive and defensive players. Also bringing back a guy like Kyle Van Noy kind of helped solidify that linebacker spot. So I think this team will be a lot more competitive than they were last year, and they'll be a little bit more explosive because Mac Jones can actually throw the ball down the field as opposed to Cam Newton just throwing darts into the turf. So I still don't think that they're anywhere near Buffalo's talent skill level. But when you have the mastermind of Bill Belichick, I think there's always a chance. And I can potentially see this team sliding as the last wild card. I'm not so sure that they'd be that first wild card, but I can see them being the last. So I've got the Bills, Patriots, Dolphins, Jets.
I think with most of us, like we all agree on the 1 and 4. I'm going to flip the 2 and 3. I think the Patriots using a rookie quarterback who, played better than Cam Newton, but, it's not like he beat out a better quarterback, I would say. I don't think that was hard for him to beat out Cam Newton. Also, they're going to be, I think Stephon Gilmore's out for like the first few weeks of the season. And there's a couple other guys on their defense that's injured or on the PUP list. And I think that's going to actually hurt them stumbling out of the gate to start the season. And I think that's going to create a gap that they won't be able to keep the to catch up on with the Miami
Dolphins. I think
Dolphins.
Miami is going to be that second place team in the AFC. I agree with everything else. Obviously, the Patriots aren't going to be last place. I don't think the Patriots are going to be first place either, and I think the Bills will be first place. The Dolphins, the reason I'm saying they're going to be first place, I do think Tua takes that next step. I like that almost like the media has been trying to get like different quarterbacks on the Dolphins, and that Brian Flores has been like, he's our quarterback. Like, what? He's the only guy in our room. Like, what are you talking about?
We're not picking up Cam Newton.
Yeah, we're not picking up Cam Newton. We're not picking up Deshaun Watson. Like, we don't need any of that. Like, we got a pretty solid quarterback. And I didn't really. I mean, I get that like everybody was super hard on Tua last year, but like when you have Ryan Fitzpatrick as your backup quarterback, there's always the threat that guy plays. Like Ryan Fitzpatrick played over Jameis Winston a couple times in Tampa Bay, like for no reason. Like that guy's just awesome, and he's gonna play for your football team sometimes. You know, it's why Taylor Heineke wasn't gonna win the Washington job, right? Because like Fitzpatrick's there. Like he may not be the best, he's not the best quarterback in the league, and he's not a Pro Bowl quarterback, but like he's dope, right? Now Tua can be dope because he's gonna get all the snaps. He's gotten all the snaps in the preseason. It's not COVID like it was last year. I think we forget that like the guys didn't have an off season last year. Like everybody was at home, you know, sitting at home like trapped, you know.
And he was coming off that hip, and so now he doesn't have that kind of like, ooh, am I going to re-injure it? Ooh, can I run the ball? I think you're going to see him be a little more explosive with the ball just in his hands outside the pocket. So
yeah, but I'll say this. I mean, like I do think there's 3 playoff teams that come out of this division. I think it's the Patriots, Dolphins, and Bills. I think the Bills are first place. The Bills, I don't know if they're a Super Bowl team this year. I get what you're saying, Jared, but like their defense is really average. And even their offensive line is not the best in the league. Like it's not out of the good teams, out of the great teams, it's not great. So it's like that could be something that hinders a little bit. Josh Allen's one of the best quarterbacks in the league, right? But yeah, this is definitely a make or break here, but I don't think like I'm putting the Browns and Ravens over them as a team that I think one of those teams will end up beating them in the playoffs, whether that's to get to the AFC Championship or whatever. So this team there will be no Super Bowl team that comes out of this division, but I do think we have 3 playoff teams. And I think it's the Bills win the division. I think it's Miami in that 5th or 6th spot, and then it's New England in that 7th spot. And just depending on kind of what the Broncos do, the Broncos can get some early season wins, get a better record at the beginning of the season. Maybe they make the playoffs, but unfortunately, I had the Broncos being left out of the playoffs. But
what I'm scared, just to go but touch on the Broncos real quick, I'm scared because we don't play the Chiefs, I think, until like week 12 is the first time we play them. And I'm like, I'd rather play them right now where they're still a little like uncertain with their offensive line. There might be communication issues. I want to get in their face right now. And I'm like, by then they're just going to be, you know, cranking the grinder. We might haven't. I'm scared that we're facing the Chiefs. We're playing them week 12 and then the last week of the season. So well, that sucks.
You guys start with New York, Jacksonville, New York.
Yeah, I know. We're going to come out real hot.
You have to go 3-0. You got Baltimore and then Pittsburgh and Vegas after that too. So like realistically, you guys could potentially start 5-1 if you really play. And that I think that's what you guys are going to have to do, unfortunately, in order to make the playoffs because of how, you know, just overall stacked the AFC is with playoff teams. I think it'll be interesting. And then after that, you know, it gets a little difficult. But like I said, the Broncos have an easy schedule. Like there's always, you know, there's Cleveland and then there's like Washington and Dallas. You probably could win one of those games, right? You have Philadelphia, Detroit on the schedule.
Here we're actually we'll probably hang out that weekend to watch that game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna have years in the face, just getting after it. That's gonna be fun. We might break.
But like I said, the Patriots have fairly easy schedule. The Dolphins have an easy schedule as well, and that's the thing that's going to be like the teams with the easier schedules are actually all the wild card teams. So it's going to be really interesting this season to see how that goes.
Really quick, I
go ahead.
forgot to mention this in my Dolphins take. Do we put any stock, and I'm not saying I do, I'm kind of just putting this more out there for you two, any stock into the fact that Tua was not named a captain on this team this year? When usually most quarterbacks, I get it, he's coming off his rookie year, is only a second-year guy, but he's the quarterback, he's the face of the franchise, and he was not named a captain.
Yeah, in fact, Wilson was named captain, and he's a first-year quarterback. So yeah, that is weird.
You know what? That's interesting, and I didn't know that. And I assume just all quarterbacks are like the captains, realistically. So
That's
like,
what I'm saying.
Yeah,
And the
I
fact
think that's
that
a journalism thing. I think that's
you know what it is? I think it's legitimately Brian Flores. It's that culture. I think he's like, why do you need to be why do you need to be the captain? You lost your job halfway through last year. Like, you need to earn that captaincy. You earn the starting job, now earn the captaincy. I don't see much stock in that, but it's very, very interesting. And I think Tua is a guy that doesn't care about that stuff either. I think he'll be able to. Yeah, what I'm wondering is, who the hell is the captain on offense for that team?
There's like 6 of them. Yeah.
It's not Myles Gaskin, right? Maybe Devontae Parker. Maybe some of their offensive linemen. Very good point. Maybe Mike Gesicki.
They probably just have like 6 defensive captains. I don't know.
Yeah.
Interesting. Real quick, just give me your MVPs for this year, and then we'll end this podcast off. Does anybody have a clear one that they had in mind that they I know Alex has a vote in there for Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
He's revealed a vote.
I think I'm gonna go Josh Allen. I think he got his money. He was so close. I'm going Josh Allen.
I don't know. This is so
fair.
Because I don't think it's Josh. I think Josh Allen takes a step back. I think he had his MVP season, if that makes sense, and he just didn't win it. It's hard to vote against like a Mahomes or Brady. I think it's Brady, to be honest. I think Brady wins it. I think he's going to take him back to the Super Bowl 2 years in a row, and that's going to I think they're going to go like 14-3. I think it's Brady, unfortunately. I hate that I'm saying that.
I am going to go this is just ridiculous, but like the winner of the NFC West quarterback is the MVP.
Damn it.
That's what it is. Whoever the NFC West's quarterback is in first place, that's the MVP. Could be Stafford, could be Wilson, could be Kyler, it could even be Jimmy G. That's probably the toughest one, but I don't think they're going to be first place. So that's why my opinion's like that. But yeah, I think it's going to be the winner of the NFC West, because I don't want to give it to Aaron Rodgers, because I just don't think it's going to go well there. Like I feel like it's not going to go well.
Nah.
Mahomes probably wins it, but like I think he even has a little bit of a regression. Not crazy, but like he's not going to have a crazy year. I'm not going to give it to Jameis. I'm not going to give it to Brady, because I think they'll be a little overrated by the end of the season. I think the voters would be like, well, he didn't have the year we thought he would.
That's fair.
Maybe Dak if they win NFC East. Maybe Dak. I could see that more than I see like Rodgers.
He'll win comeback player of the year.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I was gonna say him or Stafford could win comeback, I think.
Yeah, Dak probably Dak. Yeah, Dak more. And then the AFC, it's just like it could be Lamar, it could be Baker, like it could be Nick Chubb too, someone like that. Doesn't get enough carries though because of Kareem Hunt. Yeah, I'll go with the winner of the NFC West.
Wow, cool.
And I'll go Stafford.
Thank you. I was gonna say, so basically you don't have to pick.
Stafford. I wanted to pick Kyler so bad.
Who'd you pick again, Jared?
Allen,
right?
Josh Allen,
not Stafford. I got Tom Brady. I got the old guy. Right. Hopefully this pushes him. Hopefully this is like bad luck for him and he just doesn't make it past week 3. I don't know. We'll see. All
right. So look for us to give our predictions. Most likely tomorrow is when I'll post the predictions for week 1, our game of the week, and also our upset of the week. Everyone will pick one, and everyone will pick their game of the week, and then we maybe throw in a betting line 2 game. Realistically, mine's the Cowboys. I think it's the easy one, +8, +9, whatever it is. I think the Cowboys cover this week. So if you've seen that, I said it earlier. Me and Alex said it earlier. I know, Jared, you're not the biggest betting guy. Do you have to? You'll have to look at the thing. You have to look at the rate.
Yeah, I'll have to look. I don't have anything on top of my head.
Yeah. But yeah, that's gonna be it for this podcast. You heard our MVPs. You heard our division winners. You could probably figure out our playoff teams based off of what we said as well. And college football. It's interesting this year. What's going to happen with Oregon and Ohio State? What's going to happen with Alabama and Mercer? Will there be a mercy rule in the Alabama-Mercer game as well? But yeah, that's our podcast for this week. We'll be back every single week talking about the NFL. We're going to recap. Jared, probably going to do Monday, Tuesday, right? Figure out one of those days to record every week and get on there doing Monday morning quarterback or Tuesday morning quarterback, whatever we can do. to talk about the NFL, because that's our stuff. But yeah, that's it. Once again, I'm Nick Nenad.
I'm Jared Smith.
And thanks for having me, guys. I'm Alex Silva. See you guys next time.
See ya.